Qianye left a soul imprint inside Xianxia, and now it's screaming with pain and despair. The heavenly handle Yun clan's ancestral shrine just shattered under his touch, and the 9 Lights Heavenly Sovereign is about to learn what real audacity looks like. Leave a like and subscribe before this clan burns to the ground. What if she chooses to ignore the consequences and kill us because she's too angry? Qianye asked. I'm sure she wouldn't, Qianye Ying'er declared with cast-iron certainty. You think you know women better than I do? That actually is a good question, Qianye replied coldly. Don't worry, even if the thought did cross her mind, her master would never allow it, Qianye Ying'er said with a chilling smile on her face. Do you know the Devil Queen well? I don't, but Qianye Ying'er's eyes turned strange as she spoke. Her life's journey itself is proof that she is an incredibly ambitious person. She may even be the most ambitious woman in the entire world. So there's no way someone like her will give up on a once-in-a-lifetime chance. No, a one-of-a-kind chance like you. That is why we need to avoid being reactive as much as possible now that we know they are keeping an eye on us. A lot of time had passed since their last meeting. If Qianye really was a shadow, then his arrival to the northern divine region must have reached the Devil Queen ears already, especially since Qianye had practically revealed himself to Qianye. However, Qianye Ying'er was equally sure that the Devil Queen wouldn't reveal Qianye's identity to the world. On the contrary, she would do everything in her power to keep him hidden from the other king realms. For now, this was all just speculation. However, Qianye Ying'er looked toward the south. She wouldn't have to wait long for an answer. Qianye was doing the same thing. Qianye was approaching them swiftly from that direction. It had been exactly half a year since the Central Ruins battle. Qianye was dressed exactly the same as she was before. Golden clothes, phoenix patterns, and a headdress with jeweled tassels that hid her face. She landed softly in front of the duo before looking at her surroundings, looking slightly surprised by the changes in the weather. However, she quickly focused her attention back on Qianye and Qianye Ying'er and greeted them with a nod. Young Master Yun, Fairy Ying, long time no. See, it was clear that Qianye Ying'er absolutely scorned the title she was given. Qianye's tone had changed drastically at the end of her sentence. She stared at Qianye for a long time before exhaling deeply, saying, Young Master Yun, your growth is truly astounding. Half a year ago, Qianye was a level 5 divine king. At the time, his cultivation level already differed from the rumors. But now, he was a level 10 divine king already. You're just a divine spirit, but you saw through my cultivation level. I believe you're even more impressive than I am, Qianye said indifferently. Qianye smiled at them and asked, My master wishes to meet you both. Is that? We're not interested, Qianye Ying'er declared before Qianye had even said anything. Her tone was cold and absolutely final. Don't worry, my master holds no ill intent towards either of you. On the contrary, she believes she shares a lot of common goals with you too. That is why she wants me to inform you that she'll lend you any help you need, to the fullest extent, any help at all. The declaration wasn't something Qianye had made up herself. It was exactly what her master had told her to say. It had taken her a long time to come to terms with the offer herself when she first heard it from her master's own mouth. But after witnessing Qianye's impossible growth with her own eyes, she was starting to understand why her master had promised such a thing. Let me guess, the help comes with one condition. She wants us to visit the soul-stealing realm, doesn't she? Qianye Ying'er said with a smile. Qianye looked at her for a moment before sighing. You really are the Brahma monarch goddess. Qianye Ying'er's speculations up to this point were spot on. The same goes for you, witch. I knew you knew about my true identity, Qianye Ying'er replied sneeringly. Qianye said, Your hair looked like it was made of gold, and your beauty puts me to shame even though your face is concealed. You are a divine sovereign, but your soul pressure is incredibly intimidating. And finally, your current name is Qianye. It feels unbelievable, but Qianye can't help but think of the lady goddess who just escaped the eastern divine region not long ago. How much do you know about Qianye? Qianye Ying'er asked suddenly. Or should I say, how much does Qianye know about him? Who would dare address the Devil Queen directly by her name in the northern divine region? Qianye would, and she was even qualified considering her former status and height. A lot, Qianye's reply was simple and calm. Does that include the Devil Emperor? The temperature in Qianye Ying'er's gaze suddenly dropped several degrees lower. Her gaze almost looked sharp enough to pierce through the jeweled tassels and reach Qianye's pupils. Yes, Qianye replied. Both Xianxia and Qianye Ying'er kept quiet for a moment. Then Qianye Ying'er smiled again and said, "Her information network runs this deep. It seems like Kai Wao's ambition is even bigger than I imagined. Is she planning to free the northern divine region from its cage and engulf the rest of the divine regions in darkness?" Behind the jeweled tassels, darkness flashed across Qianye's pupils. She replied, "Isn't that your ultimate goal as well? You who have been driven into darkness." Qianye's reply was again simple, but it was enough to reveal Kai Wao's terrifying ambition to Qianye Ying'er. The northern divine region has never stopped plotting to free themselves from their cage. But not only were they not able to do it, they were barely able to put any measures into practice at all. No foreign enemy could threaten a northern region profound practitioner inside their shrinking domain, but the same rule also applied in reverse. If they tried to move beyond the boundaries of their domain, any divine region had enough power to crush them with ease, much less all three of them combined. The three divine regions were always on guard against each other. Sometimes, secret wars even broke out between them. But no divine region had ever thought of the northern divine region as a serious threat. It was clear to Qianye Ying'er that the Devil Queen, Kai Wao, was secretly building her edge without the three divine regions realizing it all. But even if they did, they would probably think of it as nothing more than a farce. If the ambitious Devil Queen really knew Xianxia to the extent she claimed, then it did make sense that she would do everything in her power to nurture Xianxia, a bearer of a creation god's divine power and a true god prophecy, into her sharpest tool. After Qianye Ying'er thought up to this point, she said, "Well said. That's exactly what Xianxia and I are aiming for. This is our first time showing up in the northern divine region, and we are as lonely and poor as a speck of dust here. We are truly honored that the Devil Queen would lend us her help, and even promise us this much despite our previous identity. Therefore, we find absolutely no reason to turn down her offer." Xianxia kept quiet and allowed Qianye Ying'er to continue. However, Qianye Ying'er's tone changed suddenly. "The Devil Queen wants a cooperative relationship, right? Cooperation can only exist between equals, and right now we're so weak that we don't even qualify as cannon fodder in the soul-stealing realm. We'd only be a laughing stock if we head there right now." "Does that mean you're turning down my master's offer, Fairy Ying?" Qianye asked. "What about young Master Yun?" "Of course not," Qianye Ying'er continued. "It is cool under a large tree. It is a simple concept anyone can grasp. But no matter how sincere the Devil Queen is, it doesn't change the fact that our strength is lacking. At our current level, the most we can do in a king realm is rely on our host's charity. I'm sure you understand what I'm saying, my witch." Qianye. "We are absolutely honored by the Devil Queen's attention and invitation, and we don't intend to turn down her offer at all. So I'll accept it right now on behalf of my master, Xianxia." Qianye Ying'er sounded completely sincere. "However, we'll meet her in 300 years instead of now." Before Qianye could say anything, Qianye Ying'er continued, "The Devil Queen promised to fulfill any of our requests as long as we agree to cooperate. Surely you and your master have no reason to turn down such a simple request. In any case, 300 years is but the blink of an eye compared to the eternal darkness of the northern divine region." Qianye Ying'er easily cut off any objection Qianye might have had with the Devil Queen's promise. The Phoenix woman fell silent for a moment before asking, "What happens in 300 years?" "Once 300 years is over, Xianxia and I will meet with the Devil Queen whether or not we're qualified to enter the soul-stealing realm," Qianye Ying'er promised calmly. Qianye Ying'er had chosen a believable timeline to act as a cover. 300 years was a very short time to a profound practitioner. In fact, it was as fleeting as smoke to a divine sovereign or a divine master. Just one seclusion could easily last several 300-year spans. To the average divine sovereign, one level increase in 300 years was already a massive improvement. But Qianye Ying'er lived intimately with Xianxia day and night, and the things she had seen from him thus far could only be described as legendary. She was absolutely certain that he could evolve into a completely new person in 300 years. Actually, 300 years was too much time. He would grow to a point where it was impossible for Kai Wao to control him in decades at most, if not sooner. She suspected that the actual time Xianxia would take to reach that level would be so short that it was impossible for Kai Wao, for anyone, to even imagine, much less be prepared for. It was the best delaying tactic she could think of on the spot. Had she tried to turn down Kai Wao's offer by force, there was no telling what that woman would do considering her terrifying ambition and sincerity. "What do you think, young Master Yun?" Qianye asked. "We will pay a visit to the soul-stealing realm in 300 years, Qianye said. "However, we'll be busy with our own things in the meantime, and we don't want to be disturbed at all. Surely the Devil Queen will grace us with this most basic level of sincerity if she truly wants to cooperate." "All right," Qianye said while nodding slowly. 300 years was a short time, so short that it was almost negligible to a king realm. "Qianye will relay your message exactly to my master. Please don't forget your promise when 300 years is up." "Oh," Qianye Ying'er looked slightly surprised. "You are given the autonomy to make decisions for your master. Qianye is master's shadow, and she is the eternal extension of her will. Master did promise to grant you any request in exchange for your cooperation, which is why Qianye has the right to make this decision on her behalf." "Witches, sure, are interesting people." Qianye Ying'er then stretched out her fingers and revealed a golden glow in her palm. She said, "Since we are in agreement, please pass this to the Devil Queen. It is a token of our sincerity." "Oh," Qianye's gaze shifted downward. Suddenly, Qi's eyes turned black, and the image of a giant blue dragon appeared in the sky. The dragon's eyes were as black as night, and it let out an earth-shaking roar the instant Qianye turned her head in shock. The dragon god's soul was noble and supreme, but the drastic change in Qi's belief had warped it into something dark and deadly. Even its roar sounded more abyssal than ancient. Completely caught off guard, Qianye's eyes grew unfocused and blank. At the same time, the golden glow in Qianye Ying'er's palm took form and unleashed its remaining Brahma soul power. It poured right into Qianye's crumbled mind. Blurry gold instantly filled up Qianye's world. The image of warmth and dreaminess was so pure that it balked anyone from touching it. The beautiful eyes behind the jeweled tassels slowly closed as she fell limply toward the ground. Qianye Ying'er moved swiftly and wrapped Qianye in a layer of gentle, profound energy. As a result, the latter hit the ground with minimal impact. The Brahma soul death-wishing mark wasn't the only thing that made the power of the Brahma soul scary. The witch's current situation was a reflection of that fact. Qianye was powerful beyond measure, but she was still put to sleep by the Brahma soul power. That being said, Qianye Ying'er did mention that the power only put its target to sleep. It didn't restrict the soul in any way. Therefore, any attack, presence, or even sound could shake her right back to wakefulness. "Very good." Qianye Ying'er threw the mini Brahma soul bell on the ground without any hesitation. Its reserves had dried up completely, and it was no longer of any use to her. If she wasn't worried about Qianye waking, she might have crushed the object to bits. A flash of twisted pleasure appeared in Qianye Ying'er's eyes as she watched the noble and elegant Qianye in deep sleep. She said in a low tone, "Now strip her." Qianye didn't move. He pointed a finger at the barrier and made it blue so that Xianxia couldn't look inside. Then he put his hands behind his back and said, "Do it yourself." "What's wrong? You're not interested?" Qianye Ying'er asked while looking at him sideways. "You were the one who changed your mind in the first place, and she gave us 300 years of leeway with little resistance. So why do we still need to do this? Aren't you afraid that it'll trigger the exact opposite of what we wanted?" Qianye let out a soft snort before his voice cooled. "Are you really trying to take back control as you claim, or are you just venting on a woman who's similar to you because of your own situation?" "Similar? She?" Qianye Ying'er sounded disdainful, but her teeth tightly clenched for a moment. Staring at Qianye, she eventually said, "Fine, it's not like doing this myself is the worst idea in the world." She extended her palm and pointed her fingers at Qianye, causing profound energy to circulate soundlessly like the wind. It might look gentle to another person, but it was really as firm and sharp as a blade. It instantly sliced Qianye's clothes to bits. She made a swiping motion with her finger, and the sliced golden fabric scattered to the side at once. Finally, Qianye's face and body became fully exposed. As expected of a witch of the Northern Devil Queen, Qianye was definitely the prettiest woman of the 5 nether ruins. Her face looked like it was sculpted by the heavens, and her body was as precious as immortal jade. Although she was currently naked and asleep, she didn't appear obscene in the slightest. On the contrary, she looked as transient and beautiful as the dancing snow, and the impression she left in the mind was one that lasts for a lifetime. In the northern divine region, Not even a devil emperor would dare to violate a member of the 9 witches like this. What a perfect woman, Qianye Ying'er said in a leisurely tone while her eyes roamed across Qianye's body. It'd be a shame if a man were to defile her. That was what she said, but the glow in her eyes was clearly ill in some way. When she turned sideways and saw that Qianye was taking his time to savor the sight of Qianye's naked body, she immediately taunted him. I thought you didn't want her. It'd be a shame to not look at something this perfect, Qianye replied. Is that really all you're going to do? Qianye Ying'er asked in a seductive voice. I'm not planning to die anytime soon, Qianye replied coldly. Heh! Qianye Ying'er shot him a cold smile before muttering in a clearly crazed manner. She's such a perfect woman, a witch of the devil queen no less. It'd be a shame if she was defiled by a man, but it'd be an even greater shame if she isn't defiled by you. Don't you agree? Qianye frowned slightly at her remark. He knew that Qianye Ying'er was saying all this because she was driven by a cruel fact. The fact that she, the Brahma monarch goddess, had become his tool and toy. Although she was the one who made the choice herself, it didn't mean that she had completely accepted the fact. Quite the contrary, it was clear that the knowledge sat so heavily in her that it had even warped her personality. After all, even god-emperors were beneath her attention in the past. Qianye Ying'er raised her palm, and several profound imagery stones appeared between her fingers. One flash later, Qianye's naked body became completely captured inside the stones. Not even Qianye Ying'er herself knew if she was doing this to take back control from Qianye, or to vent the dark emotions sitting inside her heart. Qianye Ying'er threw 2 of the stones to Qianye before drawing a circle in front of her. It was a simple glazed sound profound formation. She spoke arrogantly as the profound formation recorded her voice. My witch, cooperation should be built between balanced sides, don't you agree? You know our secret and now we have your weakness. You better not try to track, monitor or disrupt our operations during these 300 years, or I'll make sure that every man in the northern divine region gets to savor your naked form. When the recording was done, Qianye Ying'er turned around uncaringly and said, Let's go. To a righteous person, it was one of the most despicable and shameless methods of blackmail in the world. To Qianye Ying'er, it didn't even count as sinister. Qianye shot Qianye one final look before leaving the barrier with Qianye Ying'er. He had no grudge with Qianye. On the contrary, they'd both given each other what they needed, and that Qianye had only ever shown him goodwill so far. If he was his old self, he would never have allowed Qianye Ying'er to do what she did. Now he ridiculed Qianye Ying'er but did nothing to stop the blackmail. What were you doing, senior? Xianxia asked curiously. It wasn't an unfamiliar situation. Every time Qianye and Qianye Ying'er cultivated, they would erect a barrier and leave Xianxia outside. The girl had no choice but to wait patiently even when she ran into something she didn't understand during her cultivation. Sometimes the wait even lasted several days. It's nothing, Qianye replied. We're going to take you back to your clan now. There's still time to change your mind. Xianxia's eyes lit up and she declared firmly and excitedly, I want to go back. Your clansmen won't like your decision. Qianye tried one last time to persuade her. The reason they took you away in the first place is so that you won't get caught up by the deadline. But they lied to me when they took me away. They told me that they found Daddy. Xianxia shook her head and said, I'm not running away. I promised Little Wrong and Little Yi that I'd protect them when I grow up. I can't break my promise like Daddy did. Qianye. Besides, I've become much stronger during my time with Senior, she said while clenching her hands tightly. I now have the power to protect them. I'm sure the chief, big brother Xiang, and everyone will be very happy to see me. Qianye Ying'er listened quietly to her musing before commenting, For your own sake, I hope your naivety can last forever. Qianye didn't waste any more words after that. He said, Tell me where the 1,000 Desolation Realm and your clan are. Xianxia tapped her finger against Qianye's forehead, and they were flying toward the north immediately after. The Central Ruins realm was still surrounded by storms, but it was a lot calmer compared to before. In fact, it would all disappear in just a few years' time. However, no one would ever know how the storms began or died. Qianye continued to sleep peacefully inside the barrier. She couldn't possibly anticipate that someone at her level could still be put to sleep by an external force. Since the barrier completely isolated all noises from outside, it would take her at least several hours before she awoke naturally. How big is your clan right now? About 600,000 people, give or take. To think that a former realm king clan would decline so far. This population doesn't even match up to a minor sect of an average realm. We used to be a strong clan. Not anyone could bully us however they liked. Xianxia's voice grew weaker even as she tried to defend her clan. It was clear that she was aware of the current state of her clan. Who's the strongest expert in your clan? Qianye asked another question. That would be Chief Grandpa, Xianxia answered. Chief Grandpa is over 20,000 years old already. Daddy told me that Chief Grandpa used to be a godlike divine master, but after the incident, he was punished severely by the king realm and forced to drop to the divine sovereign realm. Not only that, I think it was made so that he can never recover his cultivation, and his health became much worse after that. Although Chief Grandpa is still really strong, he won't fight unless he has no other choice. It's because his lifespan is shortened every time he fights. Before Daddy left, he said that Chief Grandpa is almost at the end of his life already. How many people in the clan have purple-colored, heavenly-handled divine power like you? Qianye asked again. I'm the only one. Daddy and Chief Grandpa said that I'm the last ray of hope the heavens have gifted to the clan before the deadline. However, Xianxia bowed her head after she trailed off. She didn't know how long it would take for her to live up to everyone's expectations. I see, Qianye muttered. Yun Qinghang once told him that the strongest profound handle to ever appear in the Yun family was blue. Although there were stories about a purple-colored profound handle, it was less of a reality and more of a legend to look forward to. However, Xianxia's profound handle was without a doubt purple in color. Both Lu Bubai and Bei Hanchu were clearly agitated when they saw Xianxia unleashing a purple-colored profound handle that day. This meant that even outsiders knew what a purple-colored profound handle signified. It was no wonder that the heavenly handle Yun clan had tried everything in their power to send Xianxia away. Besides that, judging from Lu Bubai's excessive reaction and venerable hidden sword ditching his duty to chase after the sinful Yun clan, it would appear that the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace was plotting something sinister. Thousand Desolation Realm was one of 200 upper star realms that existed in the northern divine region. The sky here was even darker than normal, and the concentration of darkness aura was several times thicker than the 5 nether ruins. In certain locations, the difference was 10 times or more. This place was a heaven to devil people, and an inescapable hell to all those who didn't cultivate darkness' profound energy. Their life force, their profound energy, and even their soul would be consumed in almost no time at all. So far, Qianye's experience inside the giant prison that was the northern divine region was all about its cruel laws of survival in this world. A weakling without backing was practically synonymous to a piece of meat, just waiting for someone to snap up and devour it in one gulp. Qianye and Qianye Ying'er were attacked dozens of times while they were traveling from the Central Ruins realm to the Thousand Desolation realm. And of course, what the attackers were repaid with was immediate and utter annihilation. As they traveled north, they eventually encountered rows of meandering mountain ranges covered in thick, thunderous clouds. The clouds looked like they had existed since ancient times, and every one of them contained a terrifying amount of power. They looked like they would erupt into lightning destruction at the slightest provocation. Is this the place? Qianye asked as he stopped in his tracks. It was clear that this region was surrounded by a gigantic and powerful lightning formation. Amen, Xianxia answered while nodding strongly. She was only 16 years old, and it had been half a year since she had last seen her clan. She missed her clan so much that her eyes were clouded with tears. She said, Chief Grandpa and the others must be very worried about me. Senior, thank you. I'm sure everyone will thank you as well. Don't forget what I told you earlier, Qianye said seriously. Don't tell anyone that I refined your profound art and improved your cultivation level and talent. I promise I won't forget, Xianxia promised. After that, she finally couldn't control her excitement any longer and flew toward the lightning formation. Her cheerful cry immediately filled the air. Chief Grandpa, Big Brother Xiang, Little Yi, Little Wrong, I'm home. Xianxia crossed the uncrossable line, but the lightning formation didn't activate. It didn't attack Qianye or Qianye Ying'er either. This is my clan's lightning formation. No bad people can invade us while it's working, Xianxia said cheerfully. Don't worry, Senior Sister Qianye Ying. It won't attack you too while I'm close to you. The lightning formation was a defense barrier that kept the sinful Yun clan safe, but it was also a prison. After all, this entire region was known as the sinful region to outsiders. A shout exploded from the distance the moment they passed through the lightning formation. Who dares invade the territory of the heavenly handle Yun clan? The sinful Yun clan was very sensitive toward unfamiliar presences due to their status, and the shout was as deafening as thunder. However, joy bloomed in Yun Shang's eyes as she shouted right back, "Big Brother Xiang!" The approaching presences clearly froze in their tracks for a moment before moving even faster than before. Very soon, a handsome man with tiger-like eyes and a beautiful woman brimming with heroism entered their view. Their auras were exceptionally strong enough to draw a look from Yun Qi. A level 8 Divine Sovereign and a level 5 Divine Sovereign. They're both below 600 years old, I think. Qianye Ying'er sent a message to Yun Qi. They're likely among the strongest profound practitioners in this place. The man moving their way was without a doubt the strongest expert they had encountered in the northern divine region besides the mysterious Nanhuang Chani. But Qianye Ying'er only shot him an indifferent look before lowering her head and giving him the cold shoulder. "Shang-er!" Both people shouted emotionally when they saw Yun Shang, practically pouncing toward her until she was right in front of them. Their excitement and joy were clearly out of control. "Big Brother Xiang, Big Sister Lu, it's really been a long time since we saw each other," Yun Shang said with a bright smile on her face. "Shang'er, you—" The brawny man was a level 8 Divine Sovereign, but he was so overwhelmed by emotion that he couldn't say anything for a time. "Are you all right? Weren't you captured by Nine Lights' heavenly palace?" The woman grabbed Yun Shang's shoulders and gave her a checkup, but both her person and her aura seemed perfectly fine. Yun Shang said, "I was captured by those villains half a year ago, but Senior Yun rescued me immediately after. I've been staying with Senior Yun and Sister Qianye Ying'er ever since." "Half a year ago?" The duo exchanged a glance with each other before the man growled, "Nine Lights' heavenly palace has been lying to us." They then shifted their gaze backward to Yun Qi and Qianye Ying'er and asked, "You are?" "Yun Qi," Yun Qi said simply. "I'm from the East Ruins realm. I'm his servant Yun Qianye Ying'er." She called herself Yun Qi's servant, but her tone was clearly a lot haughtier than her master's. The brawny man moved forward and saluted them. He said, "I am Yun Xiang, and this is my wife Yun Lu. The heavenly handle Yun clan will remember everything you've done for Shang'er. Please forgive my impoliteness earlier. I didn't know that you were Shang'er's benefactors." "You are too kind, Brother Xiang," Yun Qi said while nodding. "Shang'er and I were brought together by fate, and I consider it a good thing to be able to save her." Qianye Ying'er looked at him sideways after hearing that. "Ha, I see that your surname is Yun as well. We are definitely tied together by fate." Yun Xiang laughed loudly before continuing, "I don't think you realize just how much we owe you for your heroic act. The chief and the elders are praying in the ancestral shrine. They will be overjoyed to see Yun Shang returned safe and sound," Yun Lu said. "You're right. We need to tell the chief as soon as possible." Yun Xiang couldn't be happier with the fact that he was the one responsible for patrolling the lightning formation today. He said, "Please come this way, noble guests. I'm sure our chief would like to thank you in person." These days, the heavenly handle Yun clan was the epitome of cautiousness, and they were especially wary toward outsiders. However, Yun Xiang and Yun Lu still acted warmly toward Yun Qi and Qianye Ying'er for two reasons. One, they were Yun Shang's saviors. Two, they were only level 10 divine kings. Even if they were plotting something sinister, there was nothing they could do with their strength. Yun Shang might only be 16 years old, but she was incredibly important to the heavenly handle Yun clan due to her purple profound handle. The news that Yun Shang had returned safe and sound quickly reached the whole clan. For once, the gloomy, sinful region was bursting with vitality and excitement. Once in a century, the heavenly handle Yun clan would perform a ritual for good luck. However, the ritual was cut short when the clan chief, Yun Ting, became the first person to rush out of the ancestral shrine when news of Yun Shang's return had reached him. The rest of the elders were also following him closely. Chief Grandpa, Yun Ting was the current chief of the heavenly handle Yun clan. He was old enough to live through both the pinnacle, the decline, and soon the end of the heavenly handle Yun clan. From a realm king clan to a sinful clan everyone took pity on, Yun Ting had seen everything there was to see. Yun Ting's hair was completely white, and his face and his hands looked as shriveled as dead wood. But none of these signs could compare to the sheer amount of murkiness of his eyes. Even a mortal who did not cultivate could see that he didn't have much longer to live. Yun Ting's condition couldn't be worse than it was now, and he was so old that very little fazed him anymore. Still, he couldn't help but tear up when he saw a jubilant Yun Shang leaping toward him. It was because she was far too important to this family, especially now of all times. She was a pearl from the heavens. She was also their only hope. "Xiang'er, thank goodness you're safe, thank goodness you're safe," Yun Ting said while crouching. He was so emotional that his bearing as the chief was nowhere to be seen, but the same could be said for the elders behind him. As Yun Xiang had said earlier, Yun Ting personally thanked Yun Qi for saving Yun Shang, even if he was a divine king of unknown origin. "I'm surprised how important this girl is to the clan." Qianye Ying'er had no concept of what a purple-colored profound handle meant, so the clan's reaction came as a surprise to her. "HMPH, how dare the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace lie to us and claim that Yun Shang is in their hands?" Yun Xiang said angrily with a furrowed brow. "We would have fallen for it too if Xiang'er was late by a few days," a clan elder said solemnly. "Does that mean that Nine Lights Heavenly Palace was trying to force you to give up something in exchange for Yun Shang?" Yun Qi asked suddenly. Considering how much the Heavenly Handle Yun clan treasured Yun Shang, they probably would have acquiesced even if they knew it was just smoke and mirrors. "That's right," Yun Xiang said. "The chief palace master of Nine Lights Heavenly Palace wants his young son to become a divine sovereign, so he told us to surrender the... That's in the past, and Xiang'er is safe. Nine Lights Heavenly Palace's trick is meaningless now. We'll just kick them off our doorstep when they show up the day after tomorrow." Yun Ting interrupted Yun Xiang with a smile before he could finish his sentence. Suddenly, his expression changed drastically before he grabbed Yun Shang's slender shoulders with his right hand. He looked like he couldn't believe his senses. "Xiang'er, you're at the divine tribulation realm already?" Yun Ting's words stunned everyone present. When they focused their spiritual sense on Yun Shang, they too were shocked by what they found. Earlier, everyone was too excited to notice the change in Yun Shang's profound energy. It was only now that they realized that she was already at divine tribulation realm. It wasn't as if 16-year-old divine tribulation geniuses had never appeared in the history of their clan. They were a realm king clan in the past. They were able to produce a couple of young geniuses every generation when resources were still abundant. But Yun Shang was just a middle-stage divine soul half a year ago. How did she reach the divine tribulation realm in just half a year? "Xiang'er, did you eat some kind of divine pellet?" Yun Ting's voice grew a tad urgent. To his knowledge, such tremendous improvement was only possible through artificial means. But was Yun Shang really strong enough to withstand a pellet this powerful? But to his surprise, Yun Shang shook her head and snuck a glance at Yun Qi. Then she replied, "Xiang'er ran into an amazing senior while she was with Senior Yun and Sister Qianye Ying'er. He was the one who used an incredible ability to transform my body completely. After that, cultivation suddenly became incredibly easy." Yun Ting and everyone else were completely speechless. Yun Shang's eyes were as pure as diamonds, and no one believed that she was lying. However, she also claimed that her current power was the natural result of her transformation, not a pellet. But that just wasn't possible. Yun Ting changed his hand gesture and sent a wisp of profound energy into Yun Shang's profound veins. Then, his murky-lidded eyes suddenly stretched to the widest degree like he was thunderstruck. For a long time, he stared stupidly at Yun Shang without a word or movement. The chief's reaction was so strange that the clan elders, Yun Xiang and Yun Lu, couldn't help but exchange a glance with each other. When they probed Yun Shang's profound veins with their own profound energy, their expressions were even more exaggerated than Yun Ting's. Yun Qi wasn't surprised at all by their reaction. Yun Shang's profound energy became impossibly pure after it was refined by the eternal calamity of darkness and the Dragon Dawn Jade nectar. As a result, her body's compatibility with profound energy and her mastery of it reached levels that even a former divine master like Yun Ting couldn't believe or even comprehend. To say that her cultivation speed was much faster than before would be a massive understatement. That masterful senior, Yun Ting was 20,000 years old, but he didn't hesitate to address the unknown master as his senior in a deeply respectful tone at all. "Who is he?" Yun Shang's transformation could only be described as a miracle. He couldn't even begin to imagine how amazing this supreme master was. Yun Shang smiled and replied, "That senior won't let Xiang'er say." Yun Ting still couldn't control the excitement on his face when he nodded and replied, "That's fair. If that is that senior's wish, then you shouldn't say even a word." "Oh, right." Yun Shang turned around and summoned purple lightning around her fingers. "Senior also thought me a modified version of the heavenly handle thunder cloud art. Look at this, Chief Grandpa. She moved her wrist and filled her surroundings with lightning right after she finished talking. The crowd was already stupefied when they saw the first technique. But when Xianxia moved on to the second, third, fourth technique, and more, everyone from the Yun clan looked like they had seen a living ghost. They just couldn't believe their eyes or spiritual sense no matter how they tried. Xianxia was definitely executing the heavenly handle thunder cloud art, but small modifications were present in every technique. Although the changes looked very minor, the laws and power of the art were much, much stronger than before. The core profound art of a clan or a sect was constantly evolving, but it was a long and arduous process. It was highly doubtful that the Heavenly Handle Yun clan could evolve their own art to Xianxia's current level even if they had 100,000 years of free time. Did that senior teach you this as well? Yun Ting's words sounded like they were floating in the sky. Amen, Xianxia nodded strongly. Senior also said Xiang'er can teach it to her clansmen. Yun Ting finally rose back up to his feet, but his legs were still trembling. He couldn't remember the last time he was this shocked and excited. He looked at the ancestral shrine behind him and the sky above his head. Then he let out a trembling shout. Heaven's gift! This truly is a gift from the heavens. The heavens must pity the Yun clan's fate. Qianye Ying'er snorted. Although Xianxia was saved by Yun Qi, and she clearly mentioned that Yun Qi and Qianye Ying'er were the ones who took care of her for the past half a year, no one thought that they were the ones who gave Xianxia everything. After all, how could this transcendent master possibly have anything to do with two young divine kings? Chief Grandpa, is that senior really that amazing? Xianxia asked. Xianxia was very smart, but she was also too young and inexperienced. She knew that Yun Qi was amazing, but she didn't really understand that what he did to her was out of this world. Naturally, she was surprised by Yun Ting's reaction. Of course, Yun Ting replied. Is he more amazing than you when you were stronger? Xianxia continued to ask. Yun Ting shook his head while smiling. He said, I may have been a divine master, but it's nothing compared to this senior's achievements. Xiang'er, you may not realize this, but the blessing bestowed upon you during this half-year is something others cannot obtain even in 1,000,000 lifetimes. Xianxia's lips parted. The chief's words had further increased the already huge image of Yun Qi in her heart and painted a layer of mystique over it. Xiang'er, can you really not to say that senior's name? He must like you a lot to bless you so. Did he mention if he's going to visit you anytime soon? Yun Xiang asked in an urgent tone. Stop! Yun Ting stopped him with a wave of his hand. He understood why Yun Xiang had sounded so urgent. The deadline that would decide the fate of the Heavenly Handle Yun clan was close, and this mysterious benefactor might just be able to help them survive it. The gifts he bestowed Xianxia are already beyond our ability to repay, so how can we ask him to help us more than he already has? Right now, the only way we can repay his favor is to not disturb his peace. Unless the master shows up on his own, no one is to ask Xiang'er about him. Yun Xiang fell silent after that. Yun Ting rose to his feet and sucked in a deep breath. Then he said, Xiang'er will hold a clan meeting in 10 days. Relay this order to everyone immediately, cough, cough, cough. He coughed softly for a time after giving the order, but no one looked surprised by it. It was clear that they were used to it by now. If Yun Ting hadn't wanted to cling to life until the day of the deadline, he might have left the world already. His condition was that bad. Clan meeting? At first, everyone was surprised by his decision. Then they looked at Xianxia and realized something. Could it be? That's right. Yun Ting slowly looked back up and declared in a loud voice, Xiang'er will be appointed as the young chief. The Heavenly Handle Yun clan has suffered for tens of thousands of years, and we're almost at the ultimate deadline. However, the heavens have chosen to gift us a priceless treasure in our most difficult time. Xiang'er has a purple heavenly handle, and the level of her talent is unprecedented thanks to the blessing of a master. We may not be able to escape our annihilation, but the Heavenly Handle Yun clan will rise again as long as Xiang'er is safe. Yun Ting's powerful declaration quickly infected everyone else with high spirits. Xianxia was the only one looked at a loss as she subconsciously looked in Yun Qi's direction for help. Xiang'er, are you okay with this? Yun Ting asked, because Yun Xiang was the current young chief of the Heavenly Handle Yun clan and his direct descendant, whereas Xianxia wasn't. His eyes growing determined, Yun Xiang declared without any hesitation. Xiang'er may be young, but there's no one in the entire clan who's more fit to bear the hope and future of our entire clan than her. I will do my best to support Xiang'er after I've surrendered my position to her. I swear to do this even if it costs my own life. The young chief is truly wise. The clan elders all praised him. Very good, Yunting said while nodding slowly. This is the kind of determination and willpower I would expect from a descendant of the Yun clan. Please, stay with us for a while so we may thank you for saving Xiang'er. Despite the excitement, Yunting hadn't forgotten about Yunqi or Qianye Ying'er. Yunqi didn't reject his goodwill. Thank you for your hospitality. Yunqi and Qianye Ying'er were treated very well because they saved Yunshang. The fact that their room was located at the center of the clan also showed the clan's appreciation for them. Excited noises kept entering the room from outside. Yunshang's return was like the light before the darkness of the apocalypse. Yunqi slowly walked around the room, looking at the decorations and sensing the auras around him. So, he was the descendant of a devil person from the start, and this was where the Yun family came from. How much time do you plan to waste here? Qianye Ying'er asked suddenly. Yunqi closed his eyes before replying. I wasn't with my family or my parents since I was young. When we were finally reunited, I wasn't able to perform my filial duties for long before that terrible disaster struck. So finding their ancestors' home and allowing their spirits to bask in their roots may be the only thing left I can do for them besides taking revenge. And of course, black light flashed across his eyes when he reopened them. This deadline gives us the perfect excuse to nab what we need. That is the answer I wanted to hear, Qianye Ying'er said before walking up to him. But don't take too long, you hear me. Otherwise, I may take matters into my own hands. Yunqi shot her a look before saying, You're overthinking this? I better be. Qianye Ying'er's eyes twirled before she continued. If I'm correct, the other reason you didn't embed a slave imprint in me is because you're worried that you're not hard enough. You want me to give you the push you need in case it becomes necessary. Don't worry, I promise I won't disappoint you in this regard. Yunqi frowned but didn't refute her words. Dong, dong, dong. A series of knocks suddenly came from the door. Then Yunshang's gentle voice entered the room. Are you in there, senior? Come in. Yunqi replied while turning around. His cold, dark eyes turned gentle without him realizing it. Yunshang opened the door and rushed in. She had changed out of her previous clothes for a new white dress. She stopped in front of Yunqi with reddened cheeks and stared at him with even greater admiration than before, saying, Senior, I didn't know you were that amazing, hee. Before today, Chief Yunting was the most powerful person in her world. But when she saw the look of reverence on Yunting's face when he spoke of the master, not even her inexperience could stop her from realizing just how amazing Yunqi really was. Yunqi gave her a smile and said, Why are you here? I'm sure you have a lot of things to do after all the commotion you caused right after you returned to the clan. I just felt like seeing you, that's all. Yunshang smiled right back. I guess I got used to staying with you during this half a year, senior. I feel strangely unsafe while you're not by my side. That's I snuck away and came here. Yunqi's eyes glazed over for a moment before he recovered himself. Yunshang, exactly when is the day of the deadline? Yunshang's smile immediately turned to gloom when she heard the question, but she quickly smiled again and answered, A month from now. But Chief Grandpa and everyone said there's nothing to worry about. We're on very good terms with the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect, so they probably won't do anything really bad toward us when the time comes. Of course, by very good terms, she really meant that the Heavenly Handle Yun clan was doing everything in their power to curry favor with the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect. After all, they were the Burning Moon King Realm's chosen sanctioner. If the sinful Yun clan couldn't recover the sacred artifact after the 10,000-year deadline had passed, then the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect was free to punish them however they liked, including wiping them from the face of the earth. Naturally, the sinful Yun clan must have stooped to unimaginable depths to curry favor with the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect. I see. Then you probably don't have too much to worry about, Yunqi said. Then he asked casually, Oh right, what will the Burning Moon Realm do if the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect doesn't punish you after the deadline? They won't do anything. Yunshang shook her head without hesitation. Daddy once told me that the Burning Moon Realm said this. If the Heavenly Handle Yun clan can avoid their destruction, or even claim the upper hand over the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect, then it must mean that fate still has plans in store for the Yun clan. In that case, in the name of the King Realm, they will not interfere or punish us further. Yunqi and Qianye Ying'er frowned at once. Although it sounded like the Burning Moon Realm was giving Heavenly Handle Yun clan a sliver of hope, in reality they were hammering in the nails into their coffins. It was because their declaration of mercy ensured that the Thousand Desolation divine sect would do everything in their power to kill off the Heavenly Handle Yun clan. There was no way in hell they would ever give the Heavenly Handle Yun clan the chance to claim the upper hand over them. This so-called sinful region was probably a device of the Thousand Desolation divine sect as well. As a result, the Heavenly Handle Yun clan had declined to their current state. Only 600,000 people were left in the clan, and their population was smaller than a sect of a lower star realm. The way they were now, they posed absolutely no threat to the Thousand Desolation divine sect. The Thousand Desolation divine sect wouldn't annihilate the sinful Yun clan now, because the latter still had to retrieve the sacred artifact. But the moment the day of the deadline arrived, the sinful Yun clan's fate would hinge in the Thousand Desolation divine sect's decision. Neither Qianye nor Qianye Ying'er believed that the Thousand Desolation divine sect would show the sinful Yun clan mercy. It was because they had offended a king realm. The reason the Thousand Desolation divine sect could replace the Heavenly Handle Yun clan in the first place was due to the Burning Moon realm. Naturally, they had no reason to disobey their superiors. The only reason they showed an ambiguous attitude and gave the sinful Yun clan hope was to bleed them as much as possible. A short conversation later, he asked yet another seemingly unimportant question. Why is the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace targeting your clan? Xianxia thought for a moment before replying. Big brother Xiang once told me that the chief palace master of Nine Lights Heavenly Palace has a young son. Apparently, he is incredibly talented in the profound way. However, he has been stuck at peak divine king realm for over 300 years. A year ago, Nine Lights Heavenly Palace somehow caught wind that we have an ancient pellet that might help the chief palace master's son achieve a breakthrough, and since then they've been trying to take it from us. At first, they just wanted to trade it for something. After we turned them down, they started using a lot of despicable methods, Xianxia said angrily. But we'll never surrender the ancient pellet to them. Chief Grandpa once said that the ancient pellet can be used as a final gift to the Thousand Desolation divine sect if we've no plans to use it on ourselves. Whatever happens, there's no way we're surrendering it to those villains. Is that ancient pellet really that amazing? Qianye asked, but he really wasn't interested in it. No matter how good the pellet was, it couldn't possibly compare to Xianxia's divine water of life and the Dragon Dawn Jade nectar. Of course it's amazing. It's an inheritance from our forefather, Xianxia said without hesitation. However, the forefather said that only a genius who has attracted a 4-stage lightning tribulation at minimum during divine spirit realm is qualified to consume the pellet. So far, there hasn't been anyone like this in the clan. Even big brother Xiang has only attracted a 3-stage lightning tribulation when he was a divine spirit. Qianye smiled at her and patted her on the shoulder. He said, I'll stay here until the day of the deadline. You may come to me if you have any problems you wish to ask about. Qianye's promise immediately improved Xiang's mood. Even the light in her eyes seemed much brighter. It was at this moment Xiang came through the door and said, Xiang'er, so this is where you are. The chief wants to take you to the forefather's altar himself to pray, quickly. Ah, okay. Xiang nodded before bidding Qianye goodbye. I'll come look for you tomorrow, senior. Go. Xiang gave Qianye a nod before leaving with Xiang. Are you going to save them? Qianye Ying'er suddenly broke her long silence and asked. No, Qianye answered. The Yun family I was part of gave up on their roots of darkness completely many generations ago. Today, we are barely related to this Yun clan by blood. This is their fate to fight. I've already afforded them my greatest benevolence when I gave them one last hope to cling to. But you will keep that girl alive no matter what, am I right? Yes, Qianye answered without hesitation. Qianye Ying'er stopped talking and closed her eyes. Only she knew what she was thinking about. Ying'er stayed at the Heavenly Handle Yun clan temporarily. Their time was divided between cultivating and observing everything that was going on in silence as they toured the clan at their leisure. His family's ancestral ground, he couldn't ignore it completely despite losing all of his family. Before this, Xianxia was constantly depressed because she was stuck in the shadow that was the loss of her father. However, she became a lot more cheerful after she returned to the clan, probably because she had overcome the shadows or because she was blessed by the heavens. She was always wearing a smile that could melt the hearts of others, especially when she went to look for Qianye. The news of her upcoming appointment had already spread within the clan. This and Xiang's miraculous transformation brought a ray of hope to everyone who was under the shadow of the deadline. On the third day of her return, a voice came from outside the lightning formation as promised. "Sinful Yun clan, this is your last chance," an arrogant and imposing voice said. "Surrender the sacred Yun ancient pellet, and I promise that the girl will be returned to you unharmed. Otherwise, she'll meet the same fate as the ones before her." The Nine Lights Heavenly Palace had caught half of the people who tried to sneak out of the sinful region with Yun Shang. Since then, they had tried to blackmail the sinful Yun clan into surrendering the sacred Yun ancient pellet. However, the sacred Yun ancient pellet was too important to the clan, and they just couldn't surrender it to their enemy no matter what the cost. They had no choice but to swallow tears and blood as their captured clansmen were killed one after another. In the Thousand Desolations realm, any Yun clansman who stepped out of the sinful region without permission from the Thousand Desolation divine sect could be killed by anyone. The situation they were put in was cruel and despicable, but they didn't even have the right to criticize or condemn their killers. Perhaps the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace found out about Yun Shang after interrogating the captured Yun clansmen. But when they used her as their item of blackmail, they successfully struck a fatal blow the heavenly handle Yun clan's confidence. Just like Yun Xiang and Yun Lu had said earlier, they would have surrendered the sacred Yun ancient pellet if Yun Shang had returned any later. Finally! This time, the heavenly handle Yun clan was completely unafraid of the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace. Its hidden sword. Yun Ting, the clan chief, looked at the person in the sky with a dark expression on his face. "I wasn't expecting him to show up. I heard he lost the sect's sword and their best disciple not long ago. He must be in a hurry to redeem himself." "Yun Jian, Yun Fu, Yun Hua," Yun Ting ordered. "Go give him a greeting." "Yes." The arms of the three elders shone with the light of the profound handle as they summoned their profound energy. "Let me," Yun Xiang took a step forward with the look of a hungry hawk in his eyes. "I alone am enough to deal with Hidden Sword. It's time we make them pay for blackmailing us with Xiang'er." He flew into the air before Yun Ting could respond, passed through the lightning formation and met Hidden Sword alone. A level 8 divine sovereign should be quite important in this realm. Hidden Sword? The name rings a bell, Qianye Ying'er said while glancing toward the south. "He's the Hidden Sword Palace Master and Beihan Chu's master," Yun Qi answered. "What a coincidence. It must be fate," Qianye Ying'er said with a faint sneer before bending down and closing her eyes. Her attention was elsewhere already. The man outside the formation was none other than Venerable Hidden Sword. Recently, he had had some of the most exciting experiences of his life. At first, his disciple Beihan Chu became a divine sovereign before he was 600 years old and entered the Northern Region Heavenly Sovereign ranking. What a glorious day it had been. Then, less than a month later, he was killed at an insignificant middle star realm without even a body to mourn for. He rushed to claim justice for his disciple, but instead he encountered someone who nearly made him soil his pants on the spot. He and the entire Nine Lights Heavenly Palace had no choice but to swallow the indignity. Forget claiming justice for his disciple, he didn't even dare tell anyone about it. He had no doubt that the chief palace master would vent his fury on him. But if he could obtain the sacred Yun ancient pellet, then perhaps the chief palace master would be less angry. "Young clan chief," hands behind his back, Venerable Hidden Sword smiled at Yun Xiang and said, "This venerable one has confirmed that that little girl you call Yun Shang has a purple-colored devil handle, a color that has never existed in the sinful Yun clan until now. This is a miracle. Surely she is worth a mere sacred Yun ancient pellet?" Yun Xiang made a gesture with his left hand and smiled at Venerable Hidden Sword. He said, "1. Xiang'er's life is worth hundreds, if not thousands of ancient pellets." Venerable Hidden Sword's smile grew wider. "Does that mean you finally figured out what's best for you?" "Yes, I did." Yun Xiang extended a hand filled with lightning. "This is the sacred Yun ancient pellet. The Nine Lights Heavenly Palace better fulfill their promise." "Ha ha ha ha, but of course," Venerable Hidden Sword said with a laugh before looking at Yun Xiang's hand. Then his expression changed drastically. Crack! A crack of thunder resounded through the air, and Yun Xiang attacked Venerable Yun with a huge cloud of black energy and tens of thousands of purple lightning bolts. The lightning in his hand had transformed into the heavenly dragon thunder god spear. "You!" Caught off guard, Venerable Hidden Sword threw up his power hastily to defend himself. The power of two level 8 divine sovereigns clashed against each other and erupted into a disaster zone. "Xiang'er has returned safely to our clan. Who would have thought that the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace, a 300,000-year-old sect, would employ to such shameless methods?" Do you think so little of the heavenly handle, Yun clan? Yun Xiang's angry roar shook the sky as a blue flash appeared around his left arm. The blue-colored, profound handle transformed into a giant lightning dragon before falling on Venerable Hidden Sword. Both Venerable Hidden Sword and Yun Xiang were level 8 divine sovereigns, and Venerable Hidden Sword's capacity for profound energy was much greater than Yun Xiang's. However, the Heavenly Handle Yun clan's unique, Heavenly Handle divine power made them undefeatable within the same level. Moreover, a blue-colored, Heavenly Handle amplified one's strength by another 60%, which easily allowed the wielder to crush their opponents. Boom! There was a loud explosion that felt like a hole was blown open in the sky. Despite being weaker in terms of power, Yun Xiang was able to crush Venerable Hidden Sword's 9-light sword formation and knock him back dozens of kilometers. This was the first time Venerable Hidden Sword had fought against Yun Xiang. He never thought that someone as famous as himself would be suppressed so easily by a junior of the sinful Yun clan. He roared angrily, "Sinful boy, your clan is at death's door. The Nine Lights Heavenly Palace has been a friend of the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect for generations. If you surrender the sacred Yun Ancient Pellet now, the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace may yet persuade the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect to change their mind. But if you remain as stubborn as you are, your clan will be wiped from the face of the earth." Yun Xiang's expression turned savage as the heavenly dragon thunder god's spear let out an angry roar. Drawing the lightning formation's power into his own, he attacked Venerable Hidden Sword again with 3 types of power at once. Wah! Venerable Hidden Sword let out a blood-curdling scream, and he ran away with his tail between his legs. His figure quickly disappeared into the dark horizon. Loud cries came from every corner. They'd been oppressed for so long that the retaliation felt like a clear stream through the soul. Yun Xiang landed slowly on the ground, bits of lightning still zipping across his body and his hair dancing majestically in the air. He looked as impressive as a god. The youngsters of the clan quickly surrounded him and cheered for him with their hands raised. Everyone was staring at him with starry eyes. Heh. Stroking his beard, Yun Ting nodded slowly and smiled. Yun Xiang was just 5,000 years old, but he was a level 8 divine sovereign, the Yun clan chief and the protector of the Yun clan. His talent was even better than his when he was in his prime. In the future, he had a high chance of making it to divine master. Both him and the clan elders had made up their minds to protect Yun Xiang and Yun Shang with all they had, no matter what might befall the heavenly handle Yun clan in a month. This is the profound handle you mentioned earlier. It's that powerful. Qianye Ying'er's eyes flashed. Why have I never seen you use it before? The heretic god's divine power doesn't work on it, Yun Qi said. That's why it's useless to me. I see. Qianye Ying'er didn't suspect his words. He never used it even when he was beaten to near death by Luo Changsheng, so it was unlikely that Yun Qi was lying to her. However, her eyes flashed again before she asked, "Was the god manifestation art you used during the conferred god battle a product of the profound handle?" Yun Qi frowned at her before saying, "A woman who's too smart is seriously annoying." Yun Xiang's success both vented some of the clan's frustrations and raised morale at the same time. After that, the Heavenly Handle Yun clan officially began preparations for the grand ceremony. Yun Shang had become the heart of the clan, and she was accompanied by people almost all the time. Every day she would seek out Yun Qi and tell him everything that happened around her. "I taught Chief Grandpa the new Heavenly Handle Thunder Cloud art today." He was so excited. "But Chief Grandpa is a slow learner. He's so much slower than I was. No, I only learned fast because Senior is a good teacher. Hee. The elders unsealed a forbidden ground of our ancestors for me today. I'll be cultivating there from now on. A lot of people teach me and help me to cultivate every day. Ugh. They say that they're going to spend the clan's best resources on me. Starting tomorrow, Chief Grandpa wants me to refine the Rapid Flyer Pellet and Cloud Prayer Dew. I don't know when I'll finish, so I may be late to show up tomorrow. Look, this is the Heavenly Handle robe. Only the Chief gets to wear it. Chief Grandpa gave it to me earlier than he should. I don't know why, but I don't feel too happy for some reason. I'm also a little tired today. I'm still going to work harder, though." 10 days later, Yun Shang was officially appointed as the Yun clan chief during the sect ceremony. Every Yun family clansman was gathered in one place, and all eyes and hopes were on her slender figure. Yun Shang never stopped visiting Yun Qi despite becoming the Yun clan chief, but she always showed up late, and the time she was able to spend with him grew less and less. Many times, she had to go just as she arrived at his door. The amount of times she smiled grew lesser, and each one was more forced than the last. During one night, Xianxia walked into Qi's room softly and looked at him. She rushed toward him without a word, collapsed on top of him, and closed her eyes. "What happened?" Qi asked. Xianxia shook her head inside and said softly, "Nothing, I'm just a bit tired. But there are so many things I haven't done yet, so many things I haven't learned." "If you're tired, then you should rest. You don't have to push yourself this far," Qi replied. But Xianxia still shook her head and exposed her fatigue to him. "It's my fault I'm not working hard enough. They gave me the absolute best the clan has. They said I'm the clan's hope. I can't disappoint them." "Xiang'er." The door was opened roughly as Xiang rushed in. He frowned immediately when he saw Xiang in Qi's lap. Xiang slowly stood up and answered, "Big brother Xiang." Xiang smiled at Xiang and said, "The heavenly handle cloud spirit formation the 17 elders prepared for you is complete. It'll give you a purer thunder body. Also, the Grand Elder risked his life to extract 3 drops of thunder dragon blood for you. Go quickly." "I got it," Xiang replied with a nod. She then smiled at Qi, forced but sweet as ever, and said, "Senior, I'm heading to the ancestral shrine now. See you tomorrow." Xiang left, but Xiang didn't. He stood where he was and stared at Qi. "Is there anything you wish to say?" Qi asked. "Big brother Qi." Xiang smiled gently at him before asking, "The two of you've been here for a while now. May I know when you're leaving? Are you expelling us?" Qi's reply was simple and indifferent. Xiang's smile slowly disappeared as he spoke in a cold voice. "The two of you saved Xiang'er's life, and the heavenly handle Yun clan greatly appreciates it. You know what kind of situation our clan is in, and how important Xiang'er is to us." "So?" Qi didn't react to the pressure Xiang released on purpose at all. "Xiang'er is the hope and treasure the heavens have gifted us. She is the end of our clan's millennium-long nightmare. She is also the young chief and the future chief of our clan. Her safety and her future are more important to us than anything else in the world. The heavenly handle Yun clan will not allow anyone or anything to obstruct her, especially where emotions are involved. Qi, leave this place as soon as possible. R.I.P. Xiang's fingertip crackled with thunder. "Otherwise, I won't show mercy even if you are Xiang'er's savior." Crack, lightning shredded the ground in front of Qi. It didn't fade for a long time. "That is all." Xiang turned around and left frigidly. Qi never moved a muscle. He didn't even look at the lightning crackling beneath his feet. "Are we killing him?" Qianye Ying'er asked lazily. She sounded like she was talking about a flea on the roadside. Qi didn't give her an answer. However, his eyebrows slowly knitted together. "Are you feeling sorry, or should I say, feeling regret?" Qianye Ying'er asked meaningfully after Qi fell silent. "No," Qi said coldly. "I gave her opportunities, but she must handle her own growth. No growth is easy, especially considering the situation the heavenly handle Yun clan is currently in. All eyes, hopes, and resources are on her, and so she must be able to bear that burden or be crushed by it." "Is that so?" Qianye Ying'er said with a half smile, "but you're pretty distracted as of late. Your mind is elsewhere even when you're cultivating. Don't tell me it's because you miss Nanwang Channy's delicious body." Ignoring Qianye Ying'er's taunts, Qi continued to stare at the closed door and said, "Xiang is the heavenly handle Yun clan's only hope. I'm just worried that they might do something drastic to her because of their overeagerness." "Oh," Qianye Ying'er faked realization and dragged her voice on purpose. "So that little girl is the one who has been distracting you. Now that I think about it, Xia Qingyu was only 16 when she married you, wasn't she? I also heard from your daughter that Feng Zuer, her master, was also 16 when she got together with you Tusk. So many years have passed, but your taste in women hasn't changed at all." Qi's eyebrows sank slightly. "What are you trying to say? If your daughter is still alive, she would be almost 16 now. Xiang is almost the same age as her, and they even resemble one another." "Unfortunately," Qianye Ying'er looked down and played with her fingers, "she isn't Yun Wuxin. Your daughter is dead, dead forever." Bang. Qi lost control of his mind and his profound energy at the same time. He strode forward, grabbed Qianye Ying'er by the neck, and slammed her against the wall behind her. His eyes looked like they were drenched in blood, and his expression was downright terrifying. His fingers felt like iron hooks against her skin, and the exhaled air brushing against her cheeks felt as hot as fire. But Qianye Ying'er didn't panic at all. Qi's face was only inches away from hers, but she smiled tauntingly at him and said, "Tell me, how did your daughter die again? Was she killed by Qianye Ying'er? Was she driven to death by the three divine regions? No, she died because of your naivety, your uselessness, and your so-called benevolence. You! Qianxi's fingers tightened around her neck further while trembling like a leaf. You think you can wipe away the sin and regret of your failure to protect your daughter by treating Xianxia well. You think you can use her to fill the hole in your heart. Then I can tell you that it's impossible. It will never happen. Qianye Ying'er stared right back as she shouted at him. The glint in her eyes was even sharper than his. This is a mistake on top of a mistake. What you should be doing right now, the only thing you can do is take revenge for her. You just discarded all of your weaknesses and burdens, and now you're going to create a new one for yourself. Heh! Qianye Ying'er lifted her own hand and gripped his wrist. She said, when we arrived here, you said that your plan was to use the sinful Yun clan and deprive the Nine Lights' heavenly palace of their resources. I was a fool to have trusted you back then. Qianye clenched his teeth tighter but said nothing in return. It's true that I'm your tool, but don't forget that you're my tool as well. You can be stupid, but I can stop you from being stupid. A terrible killing intent suddenly erupted from Qianye Ying'er's beautiful eyes as she said, You'd best stop now while you still can, or I will kill her with my own hands. The air turned incredibly icy. Slowly, Qianye removed his hand from Qianye Ying'er's neck, leaving behind 5 reddened finger marks on her skin. Our families share the same origin, but we live in 2 different worlds. I've seen this place already, so I shouldn't be wasting any more time here. Qianye closed his eyes and muttered to himself. While he was talking to himself, light, profound energy appeared from his fingertips and healed the red marks on Qianye Ying'er's snow-white neck. Slap! Qianye Ying'er slapped his hand away hard before asking coldly, So? We will leave tomorrow, Qianye said in a low tone. Their fate is their own. Whatever conclusion they may meet when the deadline arrives, it has nothing to do with me. Senior Sister Qianye Xianxia showed up very early today, much earlier than any other time. She also seemed to be in a good mood. Her smile was a lot more relaxed than yesterday. Not going to the ancestral shrine today? Qianye asked with a smile. I just came back from there actually, Xianxia replied with a smile. The elders praised my body and my profound veins. They said that the time I used to refine and absorb the thunder dragon's blood was much shorter than expected, and they have something important to discuss. So they allowed me to come over to play. Xianxia's aura and body were changing every day. Her aura had the scent of high-level medicine in it, and her body was refined many times over. It was clear that many experts had given their all for her. Thanks to the Dragon Dawn Jade Nectar and Eternal Calamity of Darkness, Xianxia's compatibility with all kinds of spirit energy, especially darkness profound energy, was absolutely extraordinary. Be it pellet absorption or body refinement, the speed at which she completed her tasks and her results never failed to catch the Yun clan off guard. Of course, it also fanned the flames of their excitement. The reason they allowed her to come out and relax was probably because they had an important ceremony to prepare. Their clan could very well perish when the deadline arrived, so they had to spend all their power and resources on Xianxia while they still could. Xianxia's smile was as bright as ever, but there was also a dodgy glint in her eyes. He didn't need to ask to know why. Xianxia's attitude alone had explained everything. Her clansmen must have told her to keep her distance or even leave him, but she was trying very hard not to let it show. Xianxia. Qianye got down on his knees and said, The road ahead of you will be full of hardships, but this is a process you must endure because your clan is in danger. I'm sure that your future will be thorny as well. I hope you will grow quickly. At the very least, you need to be able to protect yourself. Huh? Xianxia blinked her eyes in confusion. MN, I know. But why are you acting so strange today, Senior? You never say things like this. I'm leaving, Qianye said directly. Xianxia froze for a second. Then her expression devolved into panic. Where are you headed to? Anywhere that isn't here, of course, Qianye answered. We've been the clan's guests for a very long time. We should have said goodbye a long time ago. But, she panicked. It was a kind of panic that ran so deep that she couldn't speak properly. But you said you'd stay until the day of the deadline. Qianye put a hand on her shoulder and looked into her eyes. Xianxia, you must remember this. Never trust anything anyone says easily, because even the one you thought you could trust the most may lie to you one day. Xianxia's eyes shivered, but she opened her lips and formed a smile. She said, MN, Senior is an amazing person. You saved my life, escorted me back to my clan safely, and even gave me so much. But I was so selfish. I didn't want Senior to leave. She was doing her best to smile at him, but there was nothing she could do about the tears sliding down her cheeks. Senior's world must be tall and broad. Please be safe wherever you go. Amen, don't worry about me. Qianye wiped away her tears with a finger. His gaze was peaceful and calm. I'll go inform Chief Grandpa and Big Brother Xiang right now. I'm sure they'll want to send you off personally. That was what she said, but her hands had tightened on Qianye's sleeves unconsciously. She wasn't willing to let him go. Qianye shook his head and replied, It's fine, I'll leave right now. They probably wanted me to leave a long time ago. Xianxia's eyes turned sorrowful as she bowed her head. It took her a while before she mustered the strength to say, Senior, will you visit me in the future? I won't. His answer was indifferent and cruel. She wiped away all the tears on her face. Instead of acting sad, she raised her head high and said, If one day I find Senior, can you please not run away from me? All right. Qianye nodded affirmatively. But as you said, my world is tall and broad. If you wish to find me, you must become even stronger than you are now. Amen, she nodded strongly. I'll live no matter what happens. I'll definitely see you again, Senior. Qianye removed his gaze and his arm from her shoulder. Then he said, Let's go Qianye. He started walking toward the door before he was even finished talking. There was no hesitation or longing in his stride. Senior, Xianxia cried out from behind again. Can you promise me another selfish wish? Qianye stopped in his tracks. Can you leave something behind for me? Her tearful, begging voice could melt any hardened heart. I want to look at it whenever I think about. Unnecessary distractions will only hinder your journey. Qianye cut her off cruelly before starting to walk once more. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. The girl behind him didn't say anything, but the soundless sadness spreading from her person was unmistakable. Qianye stopped again and exhaled deeply. Then he turned around and returned to Xianxia's side without warning. He was holding up a pure, thick light of darkness on his fingertip. It was the light of the eternal calamity of darkness. Ah, Xianxia let out a yelp of surprise, but Qianye had already drawn a pitch-black mark on her solar plexus. The moment the mark took form, it let out a black flash before vanishing into nothing. See, Nior, she looked at him in confusion. If you're in danger, you can use it to call out to my name. The moment he finished speaking, he turned around and took to the sky. A burst of air later, he had vanished completely into the horizon. Xianxia stared at the sky quietly. She didn't look away for a very long time. Clan just like that. They didn't tell anyone about their departure besides Xianxia. While Qianye was bidding Xianxia goodbye, an important matter was being decided in the heavenly handle Yun clan's ancestral shrine. Is this the sacred Yun ancient pellet? A glowing pearl about the size of a dragon-eye fruit was floating at the center of the ancestral shrine. Occasionally, lightning would zap out of its surface. Although it was just a pellet, it was brimming with soul aura and life force. The unbelievable amount of spirit energy it contained was especially notable. The heavenly handle Yun clan chief Yun Ting, the 3 grand elders, and 17 elders were all in their seats. Yun Xiang was present for the meeting as well. This was the first time he had seen the sacred Yun ancient pellet. For the longest time, the pellet was sealed inside the ancestral shrine's formation to keep its energy from leaking or it being stolen by a thief. It looks like we are all in agreement here, Yun Ting said slowly. His eyes reflected the lightning flashes of the pellet and some traces of piousness. Are we really going to refine it for Xianxia? Yun Xiang looked at Yun Ting worriedly as he spoke. Our ancestors said that no one poorer than a 4-stage lightning tribulation should consume the sacred Yun ancient pellet. Although Xianxia is absolutely qualified, she has just entered divine tribulation realm recently. It's too dangerous to feed her an ancient pellet our ancestors said that only a divine spirit can refine. If something were to happen to her, there's nothing to worry about, the second elder Yun Fu said. Of course, Xianxia won't be able to do this alone, but there are 21 of us including the clan chief and 3 grand elders. There's no reason we should fail to control its energy. The 3 grand elders are participating too? Yun Xiang asked while knitting his eyebrows together. All 3 grand elders of the Yun clan were nearing the end of their lifespans, so the use of any power would only decrease their lives further. Sigh. One of the grand elders let out a sigh and said, We are only 7 days away from the deadline. If we don't refine this pellet for Xianxia before 7 days are up, I'm afraid we'll never have the chance later. Thanks to the Master's blessing, Xianxia's body and profound veins have become extraordinary beyond measure, Yun Ting said. She is able to refine any pellet with ease, even intense ones like a dragon's blood. With her constitution and all our strength combined, there should be no reason we would fail to refine the ancient pellet. The only real problem here is Xianger's cultivation level. We'll have to keep the pellet's energy under control for a very long time until it is fully refined. Ying'er, this is why we'd asked you to join us. With you around, the chances of something unexpected happening are non-existent. All right. Xiang's worry immediately melted in the face of his senior's certainty. He stood up and said, I'll go call Xianxia right now. A large, purple, profound formation quickly took form inside the ancestral shrine. Xianxia sat quietly at the center of the profound formation. She was linked with 22 auras through the profound formations, the strongest profound practitioners in the entire Heavenly Handle Yun clan. It was a group made up of the clan chief himself, the former Yun clan chief, and all the elders and grand elders. The sacred Yun ancient pellet and Xianxia deserved all their attention. Xianxia, slow down the circulation of your profound energy and relax your mind, Yun said in the gentlest voice he could muster. The energy of the sacred Yun ancient pellet is violent and intense, but it is the clan's pellet, so it's naturally compatible with us. You need to believe in us, and even more so your blessed body and profound veins. I won't disappoint everyone, Xianxia said calmly and obediently. Yun nodded and said, let us begin. Cha. The profound formation flashed black and purple as it circulated slowly. Then, 22 divine sovereign auras lifted the sacred Yun ancient pellet into the air and pushed it toward Xianxia. The girl accepted the pellet and swallowed it without any hesitation. Release the seal, the great elder Xianxia declared. The moment the seal on the sacred Yun ancient pellet was released, the pellet's energy immediately spilled out like a flood. However, the outflow of energy was immediately bound and channeled into tiny, gradual streams of energy that Xianxia could refine. All right. Although no one here had witnessed the true power of the sacred Yun ancient pellet before, and Xianxia had only just entered divine tribulation realm, the likelihood that a mishap might happen under the watchful eyes of 20 divine sovereigns was next to zero. In fact, everything was under control even though the initial outburst was incredibly intense. If this succeeds, Xianger's cultivation will improve drastically. It may even be enough to raise her into the middle stage. Her lightning powers will improve tremendously as well. Yun was fully concentrated on his task, but he couldn't hide the excitement in his voice. 15 minutes, 45 minutes. The outflow of energy was maintained at a slow and steady rate, thanks to the combined might of 22 divine sovereigns. The refinement process was going extraordinarily smoothly as well. It was at this moment a soft and unusual noise entered everyone's spiritual senses. What's that noise? Divine sovereigns had extraordinary senses. There was no way it was a hallucination. Suddenly, energy stopped pouring out of the sacred Yun ancient pellet as if it had run dry already, catching everyone by surprise. Then, the strange noise happened again as the pellet's shape changed abruptly, followed by an explosion of energy tens of times stronger than the initial outburst. It was like a volcanic eruption that came out of nowhere. What? The unexpected turn of events shocked everyone present, but something even more terrible happened right after. The explosion had struck the weakest point of the aura dam with uncanny precision, broken through like a flood, and poured straight into Xianxia's body and profound veins. Boom, all light vanished from Xianxia's world, leaving behind only an unending rumble of noises. A long jet of blood burst out of Xianxia's mouth, carrying away all the color in her face. What's going on? A pellet spirit? It's a pellet spirit. How can a pellet spirit be this deadly? Yun exclaimed in shock and anger. Not only did the pellet spirit have a mind of its own, it clearly had high intelligence. It had them absolutely fooled. Control it now. Stop, Xianxia shouted at them. Are you trying to kill Xianxia? Xianxia was only a divine tribulation profound practitioner. There was absolutely no way her body could endure the power of a divine sovereign. That was why they had gathered only a tiny fraction of their power at the start. If anyone increased their power level by even a little, they could kill Xianxia on the spot. Another jet of blood escaped Xianxia's lips. The uncontrollable energy was rampaging through her body and profound veins like 1,000 nightmarish blades, extinguishing all signs of life in its way. Chief! Xianxia was at a complete loss. Draw out the sacred Yun ancient pellet, quickly! Yun barked out the order. His eye sockets looked like they might tear themselves apart. Half a breath later and many flashes of profound energy, the slightly refined sacred Yun ancient pellet was drawn out of Yun Shang's mouth urgently. Then some of the divine sovereigns unleashed their full power and sealed the pellet completely. The profound formation dissipated, and Yun Shang slowly collapsed to the ground. Her face was deathly pale, and she was completely unconscious. Even now, the pellet's energy was still rampaging inside her body like a horde of cruel and bloodthirsty animals. Yun Shang only had a divine tribulation body. If they waited even a couple of breaths longer, the pellet's energy would kill her completely or even make her explode. "Xiang'er, quickly, drive the pellet's energy into her profound veins." Breathing heavily, Yun Ting shouted in a clearly shaken voice. Yun Xiang looked up and asked hoarsely, You can't be planning to? It's still better than being dead." A dozen or so profound auras immediately entered Yun Shang's body once more and guided the rampaging pellet energy into Yun Shang's profound veins carefully. They could extinguish this energy as easily as blowing out a candle's flame. But if they tried this in Yun Shang's body, it would kill her on the spot. So the only thing they could do was guide it somewhere else. The reason they chose to guide it to the profound veins was because it was the only organ that was strong enough to hold the power without killing Yun Shang. However, her profound veins would undoubtedly be damaged or even destroyed completely. Soon, all of the pellet's energy was guided into Yun Shang's profound veins. It was damaged beyond recognition in just the blink of an eye. Yun Ting strode forward and sent a surge of profound energy into Yun Shang's solar plexus through his fingertip. Blood poured out of his teeth the moment he did that. Boom, the rampaging energy was annihilated by Yun Ting's power bit by bit. By the time the pellet's energy was completely destroyed, so were Yun Shang's profound veins. Her profound energy quickly crumbled into nothing. Silence enveloped the ancestral shrine. The only sounds that could be heard were the heaviest breaths they had ever drawn. Everyone stared at the unconscious and blood-drenched Yun Shang on the ground. Her life force had become incredibly weak, and she was losing profound energy every second. It wouldn't be long before they were gone completely. Recovery after that was impossible. It was because her profound veins were destroyed, utterly and completely destroyed. How did this happen?" Yun Ting muttered while feeling paralyzed. His hand was frozen and his pupils were completely drained of color. "Xiang'er," Yun Xiang called out softly before clenching his teeth. He bowed his head and trembled like a leaf. "Sigh." All the elders sighed sorrowfully. They looked like they had aged many years at the same time. Yun Shang's purple-colored heavenly handle was a miracle. The transformation of her profound veins was a miracle. As for the sacred Yun ancient pellet, it was the clan's most sacred and mysterious sacred object. They were willing to give Yun Shang their absolute best. Today they even gathered their strongest experts together to give her the sacred Yun ancient pellet. But destroyed. The sacred Yun ancient pellet, no, they had destroyed Yun Shang. And with it, the clan's hope and future as well. The day Yun Shang returned to the clan, everything she showed them had lifted their spirits like never before. She was like a ray of light that parted the gray, dark world that was the end, and she made them feel like the heavens were still watching over their clan. Although the blood in her veins didn't belong to the clan chief, no one objected to her replacement of Yun Xiang as the young clan chief. But, like a cruel joke of the heavens, Yun Shang was utterly destroyed. Worse, they were the ones who had caused her destruction. "Chief!" Yun Xiang couldn't say anything else besides that. Yun Ting kept his eyes closed for a long time. It was as if he was afraid to stare the cruel reality in the eye. "Yun Ting," the Grand Elder standing in the middle of the three Grand Elders started in an incredibly heavy voice. "Let's activate the forbidden blood ritual." Yun Ting abruptly opened his eyes. Yun Xiang turned around to look at the Grand Elder in shock. The Grand Elder on the right side said slowly as well, "It is a forbidden art our ancestors strictly forbade us from using, but at this point, we no longer have a choice. At the very least, we must preserve the purple heavenly handle." This so-called forbidden blood ritual was really a cruel blood transfer method. It had the ability of transferring the heavenly handle divine power from one kin to another. However, the Yun clansman whose blood was removed would die for sure. The heavenly handle divine power was a kind of bloodline power. It wouldn't disappear even if one's profound veins were destroyed. Yun Ting's shriveled flesh shuddered violently, but he ultimately wasn't able to object against the Grand Elder's suggestion. A powerless voice escaped his lips. "Elders, please prepare the blood transfer formation immediately." Yun Shang had become a complete cripple, and there was absolutely no hope of recovery. This meant that her miraculous purple profound handle was completely useless to her. It was extraordinarily cruel to Xianxia to transfer it to another person, but at least the last miracle of the Yun clan wouldn't die with her. Ying'er, Yunting called out. He wasn't able to finish his sentence, however. I understand. Yun Xiang let out a sigh. I will inherit Xiang'er's purple heavenly handle. I will also bear the burden that is her life. I will not let her sacrifice go to waste no matter what. The forbidden blood ritual, the taboo slowly began amidst the terrible atmosphere. Yun Xiang lay soundlessly on the floor. Even her lips had turned completely pale. Her world was crumbling in pain and darkness. It's painful, it hurts. Someone save me. Her father's figure, her mother's figure, Yun Qi's figure, and a dark but warm light flashed across her eyes. She tried everything in her power to touch the black light. A mutter that came from the soul resounded throughout the blurry world of her consciousness. See, Nior. Yun Qi had been silent ever since he left the heavenly handle Yun clan. Even Qianye Ying'er chose not to speak with him right away. Where are we going? Qianye Ying'er finally spoke after a while. Wherever fate leads us. In that case, I have a good place in mind. Where? The God realm of absolute beginning. Yun Qi turned around and looked at her with a frown. Think flexibly, Qianye Ying'er said slowly. You're extremely good in the art of concealment, and you now have control over the power of wind. No one in the Eastern Divine region will recognize you if you disguise yourself and pretend to be a wind profound practitioner. As for me, I'm even safer than you are because of the Nai Yuan stone. It's true that you and I were driven into this place at the beginning, but those powers also can't stop us anymore, can they? I've been to the God realm of absolute beginning many times. I can tell you that there's no place in the world more suitable for cultivation than that place, Qianye Ying'er said as a cold glint flashed across her eyes. Of course, the danger we'll be facing is equal to the opportunities we'll receive. I'll consider it. Yun Qi didn't accept the suggestion, but he couldn't help but think of a girl in a rainbow dress when the name was brought up. Qianye, I wonder how she's doing right now. I wonder if she heard about what happened to me and Jasmine already. Clang. Suddenly, an unnatural flash of darkness appeared in Yun Qi's eyes. Qianye Ying'er also noticed it. What's that? She discovered that Yun Qi's face had become unnaturally dark before she even finished her sentence. Without a word, he grabbed Qianye Ying'er's shoulder and charged right back to the heavenly handle Yun clan like a tornado. Did something happen to the girl? Qianye Ying'er immediately figured out the reason behind Yun Qi's change in expression and aura. The darkness imprint Yun Qi left inside Xianxia was clearly imbued with a bit of his soul energy. However, it had only been less than 2 hours since they left the heavenly handle Yun clan, and whatever had happened to her during this time was clearly serious. Yun Qi didn't answer Qianye Ying'er. His expression was dark and frigid. It was because the emotions he felt from the soul energy he left in Xianxia were pain and despair. Yun Qi's speed hit an astonishing level as wind propelled the extreme mirage lightning. He was almost fast enough to pierce through space already. In less than 15 minutes' time, he had returned to the Yun clan's lightning region. Still holding onto Qianye Ying'er, Yun Qi passed through the lightning region without pause. The clouds in the sky moved slightly, but didn't fire any lightning at them. When they entered the heavenly handle Yun clan's domain, Yun Qi slowed down and expanded his spiritual senses in every direction. However, he wasn't able to sense Xianxia. Clearly a barrier was blocking him from sensing her the normal way. He closed his eyes temporarily to search for the soul energy he left inside Xianxia, and soon he set his gaze on the Yun clan's ancestral shrine and flew toward it. Yun Qi and Qianye Ying'er were the heavenly heaven Yun clan's honored guests, and when they left, they hadn't told anyone about their departure besides Xianxia. Since the lightning region didn't react to them, no one knew that the duo had left and returned to the clan. The Yun clansmen on the ground were surprised to see them zipping across the sky like lightning, but no one thought to warn someone or stop them in their tracks. They were getting closer to the ancestral shrine, but Xianxia's life force was growing weaker and weaker. A short time later, a deep purple-colored barrier that encompassed the entire shrine entered their vision. The barrier wasn't particularly powerful. It was there mainly to warn people away from the shrine. After all, who would intrude the ancestral shrine with such an obvious barrier in place? Not any Yun clansmen, at least. Break it, Yun Qi said darkly. The golden-colored soft sword Qianye Ying'er hung at her waist flew out and caused a 1,000-meter crack to appear in the air. The golden crack immediately split open the purple lightning barrier and destroyed it in an instant. An angry roar broke out of the ancestral shrine when the barrier shattered. "Who dares?" Bang. The thick and heavy stone door at the entrance was destroyed violently. The group of people who just finished constructing the blood transfer formation and were about to perform the taboo were surprised when they saw who the intruder was. The 22 strongest profound practitioners of the heavenly handle Yun clan were currently present in the ancestral shrine. Just the spirit pressure they emitted was enough to make most people unable to breathe. Xianxia was at the center of these auras. Deathly pale and barely breathing, she lay on the ground like a lifeless blade of grass. Beneath her, the flickering light of an eerie, red-colored profound formation painted her body in red. Divine sovereigns naturally had strong minds, but everyone including Yun Ting looked panicked, not angry, when Yun Qi suddenly barged into their ancestral shrine. They couldn't tell anyone about the fact that Xianxia was destroyed, much less the forbidden blood ritual. However, both facts had been exposed to the outsider, Yun Qi. The silence lasted for a fraction of a second. Then Yun Qi appeared next to Xianxia and gently lifted her into the air. His movement finally broke the group out of their shock. Yun Xiang strode toward Yun Qi and said, "Let her go." However, an ancient hand caught him by the arm and stopped him in his tracks. Yun Ting shook his head at Yun Xiang and said powerlessly, "Leave him. He's Shanger's savior." Yun Qi was the one who took care of Xianxia during the half a year she went missing, not to mention that he was the one who saved her in the first place. It was obvious to everyone that Xianxia held very special feelings toward Yun Qi and relied on him heavily. Xianxia's destruction had already caused them great regret, but the sight of Yun Qi only deepened that feeling even further. "What did you people do to her?" Yun Qi asked while pressing his hand against Xianxia's chest. He didn't look up, and his voice sounded so calm that not even Qianye Ying'er could detect any emotion from it. The same couldn't be said for Heling, however. The devil in Yun Qi's heart was clearly letting out a low, guttural growl. She hurriedly said, "Please wait, Master. Everyone here is good to Xianxia. There must be some kind of reason." Yun Ting let out a sigh and said, "Yun Qi, you're the one who saved Xianxia, and you share a close relationship with each other. I suppose we shouldn't hide the truth for you since you've seen this with your own eyes. We were working together to refine the sacred Yun ancient pellet our ancestors left behind. It was to improve Xianger's talent and cultivation. However, we never imagined that the pellet's spirit would undergo a transformation during the hundreds of thousands of years it was sealed. We had no choice but to drive the rampaging pellet energy into her profound veins to preserve her life." Yun Ting closed his eyes painfully and continued, "We destroyed Xianxia and the hope of our clan. This is a grave error we cannot change. You'd be right to scold us for our failure." Yun Qi was circulating both the divine miracle of life and the great way of the Buddha right now. Xianxia's face slowly gained a bit of color as light profound energy carried the rage god's energy into her tiny body. He had no doubt that Yun Ting was telling him the truth. The purple pellet that was sealed by divine sovereigns and emitting a strange spirit energy at the side, and the remaining pellet energy inside Xianxia's body were proof of Yun Ting's words. Suddenly, Qianye Ying'er spoke up. "If that's true, then tell me what's with this blood transfer formation?" The people balked slightly when they heard her question. "What do you mean?" Yun Qi looked up and asked. He had heard her tone and seen the obvious change in everyone else's expressions. Qianye Ying'er once told him that the Brahma God clan had a unique bloodline power. Naturally, they knew some taboo arts such as the transference of bloodline power. Yun Qi might not recognize the crimson profound formation beneath Xianxia, but Qianye Ying'er knew what it was the moment she saw it. This is a blood transfer formation, used to transfer one's bloodline power from one person to another. It is considered an incredibly cruel sacrificial formation, and it is considered a taboo in any realm. The sacrifice's blood and vitality are fully drained so that their bloodline power can be transferred or fused into a person of a similar bloodline. Yun Qi. Qianye Ying'er knew full well what kind of reaction her explanation would draw out of Yun Qi, but she continued to pour oil onto the fire and said, "I guess the girl still has her uses even after she was crippled by them. They were planning to use a taboo art to strip her of her purple heavenly handle. It's no wonder someone wants to annihilate their clan." The blood transfer formation was an absolutely taboo formation that went against the human way and even the natural way. It was even a taboo among taboos to the heavenly handle Yun clan. Literally, no one here had ever come into contact with something like this before, and they definitely didn't think that they would be forced to operate such a cruel taboo one day. Qianye didn't move or react at all. Still circulating the divine miracle of life, the memory of Jasmine and Qianye being sealed into a sacrificial formation passed through his eyes. The fact that Qianye Ying'er had revealed the blood transfer formation, exposed their sin, and taunted them in the end, caused their humiliation to turn into anger immediately. "Impudent!" The great elder let out an angry growl. The second elder rose to his feet and sent his aura crashing down on Qianye Ying'er like a tidal wave while saying, "Kneel and apologize, and you'll get to live." "Stop!" Qianye said before canceling out Yun Fu's aura with his own. He sighed heavily and said, "You saved Xianxia before. You're our honored guests and our benefactors. Leave in 2 hours, and we will not ask you to pay for your crimes of intrusion and offense." Xianxia said urgently, "But if they were to spread word about this?" "So what if they did?" Qianye let out a bitter laugh. "We chose to do this, didn't we?" Qianye lifted Xianxia and slowly turned around. His gaze slowly swept across the 22 divine sovereigns in front of him before finally stopping at Qianye. He asked, "Why did you do this?" He sounded incredibly calm. It was as if he was a stranger asking about something that didn't matter to him. "Put down Xianxia and get out of our shrine," Xianxia said while stepping forward before Qianye could give him a reply. The young man stared coldly at Qianye before continuing. "You've barged into our ancestral shrine and offended our clan. Our clan chief has given you much face by treating you as mercifully as he has. Get out of this place right now before I change my mind." "Answer me. Why did you do this?" Ignoring Xianxia's angry yell completely, Qianye calmly repeated his question a second time. But for some reason, a chill suddenly entered Qianye's body out of nowhere. "This definitely isn't what we wanted." Qianye's reply sounded incredibly weak. Qianye continued to speak in a calm tone. "From the looks of this ancient pellet, only a divine spirit and above can consume it safely, and that's assuming the person is supported. Xianxia has only entered divine tribulation realm, and the chances of something going wrong even if she had the support of a divine master are very high. Are you seriously telling me that you weren't aware of this? You are the ones who destroyed her with your own hands, and this blood transfer formation is how you repay her." Qianye looked away and said sorrowfully, "The deadline is close. Everything, be it the sacred Yun ancient pellet or the blood transfer formation, is for the sake of an uncertain future. We don't have another choice." "Clan chief, you don't have to explain anything to him," Xianxia said and pointed his palm straight at Qianye. He continued, "I don't care how close you are to Xianxia, but she is a member of the heavenly handle Yun clan. This is her sacrifice for the sake of the clan. But you are just an outsider from the beginning to the end. An outsider like you has no right to interfere with our business. Your transgressions today have canceled out your earlier favor." Xianxia's expression and tone turned darker. "So this is your last warning. Get out of here now or you won't get another chance." Qianye flipped his palm once, and the power of the divine miracle of life changed with the movement. Right now, Qianye was focusing all of his mind and power onto Xianxia, and he did not dare to get distracted for even a second. Otherwise, the shrine might already be littered with bodies. Xianxia was still deathly pale. He looked up from her face and smiled at the people in front of him. He said, "In your eyes, the clan's interest is far more important than her life. The reason you treated her well was for the sake of the clan. Even when you crippled her and are ready to sacrifice her in a cruel ritual, you still believe you're in the right because it's for the sake of the clan. It all sounds reasonable and fair. I will even admit that I've no right to interfere with your clan's business because I am an outsider." His gaze slowly swept across the divine sovereigns' faces as he continued, "To me, her life is far more important than all of yours combined. Going by that logic, does that mean I'd be perfectly in the right if I killed all of you for what you did to her?" Qianye's tone was mild, but his words caused every Yun expert to frown deeply. "Heh," Xianxia chuckled. In that moment, he thought that they had been foolish to try to explain themselves and even offer concessions to Qianye. Disdain and disgust replaced the anger on his face. He said, "You think you can kill us? A divine king? You may have saved Xianxia, but that doesn't give you the right to behave so atrociously." The second clan elder, Yun Fu, knitted his eyebrows together and said, "You should be thankful that the clan chief is a broad-minded person who doesn't forget his debts, or you would have already been punished for everything you said earlier. This is your last warning. Get out of this place now." Bang. A ripple of profound energy spread out inside the shrine like water ripples. It definitely looked like they weren't going to hold back any longer if Qianye and Qianye Ying'er showed even the slightest hesitation. Qianye Ying'er, said softly, "Kill," boom crack. A loud, terrible boom suddenly came from outside, followed by a shudder of space that felt like the sky itself was collapsing and many confused screams. All 22 divine sovereigns rose to their feet immediately. Xianxia declared harshly, "Someone is forcing their way through the lightning formation." "No, they're already inside," Yunting said, "and this aura is." "Someone is interfering with the lightning formation," said the first Grand Elder in an ancient voice. "It's the desolate Heaven Dragon clan." "WH what?" Xiang and all the elders were stunned to hear this. "No, it's not just the desolate Heaven Dragon clan." Yunting turned around and clenched his fists slowly. "The Nine Lights' heavenly palace has shown up as well." At the same time, a voice that shook the soul, one with the might of a divine sovereign, no, a peak divine sovereign, came from afar. "Clan Chief Yunting, the Nine Lights' heavenly palace has come to pay a visit. Please come out." It's the Nine Lights Palace Master." This voice, this terrible spiritual pressure. It was the chief palace master of the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace, the Nine Lights Heavenly Sovereign. "Is he here for the sacred Yun ancient pellet again?" Xiang asked through gritted teeth. "Looking at the size of their group, I doubt they're here for the sacred Yun ancient pellet only," Yunting said with a deep, sorrowful sigh. "We're only 7 days away from the deadline. We should have known that greed would take its natural course. Come, let's head out and meet them. Grand Elders, please accompany me as well." In the past, he almost never employed the 3 Grand Elders' strength, but he had clearly changed his mind today. "Clan Chief, are you going too?" All the elders blurted in shock. At Yunting's current state, unleashing his full power would deplete both his profound energy and his life force. Yunting waved his hands and said, "The Nine Lights Heavenly Sovereign is far stronger than you can imagine, not to mention that he hasn't come alone. If I stay my hand today, we may not even survive until the day of the deadline. Come on, let's not dilly-dally any longer." Xianxia had returned to them as a shining light of hope. However, they had extinguished it by their own hands. The gloominess, regret, and guilt that came with her destruction were so heavy that he couldn't help but feel discouraged. No one had a mind to bother with Qianye Ying'er, or even Xianxia at this point. They left the ancestral shrine together and took to the sky. Qianye didn't move a muscle, and no one was next to him. Xianxia's body and profound veins were healing at an impossible rate as light, profound energy circulated inside of her. Although color was returning to Xianxia's face bit by bit, she was still stuck in a deep coma. Qianye Ying'er stood in a corner and watched him silently. She was certain that Qianye hadn't been as focused as he was now when he was healing her profound veins using the divine miracle of life. Hundreds of people were currently floating above the heavenly Handle Yun clan settlement. It wasn't a big number, but they were all incredibly powerful, and there were 30 divine sovereigns in the group. It was a greater number than all the divine sovereigns in the heavenly Handle Yun clan combined. Moreover, the 2 leaders who were freezing space itself with their auras were peak divine sovereigns. Humans weren't the only living beings in the group. Huge draconic figures, even the shortest among them was at least 3,000 meters long, whereas the longest reached a span of 30,000, could be seen swimming above the lightning formation while crackling with thunder. Somehow, they were able to force open a passage through the lightning formation that would allow even a completely ordinary mortal to pass through. The Heavenly Handle Yun clan weren't the best lightning profound practitioners in the 1,000 Desolation realm. That was the desolate Heaven Dragon clan. In fact, without counting the King realms, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to call their desolate Heaven Devil Thunder the most powerful thunder in the northern divine region. Therefore, interfering with the Heavenly Handle Yun clan's lightning formation was child's play to them. "Long time no see, Clan Chief Yun. How have you been?" The Nine Lights Heavenly Sovereign was a cultured-looking man with a kind face, long hair, and a long beard. Clad in black robes, he looked just like a storybook immortal. Yunting ignored his greeting, however. Instead, he stared at the man in purple robes next to Ning Light's Heavenly Sovereign angrily and said, "Qianye, our clans have been friends for hundreds of millennia. Anyone in the 1,000 Desolation realm has the right to step on us, but not you. Why have you come uninvited and in such great numbers today? Are you here to visit a dying friend or what?" Qianye was the chief of the desolate Heaven Dragon clan. He. The desolate Heaven Dragon chief laughed without any semblance of regret or anger before saying, "Clan Chief Yun, this chief is only here as company. He will leave once the Nine Lights Heavenly Sovereign has gotten what he wants." Indifference was the most overt expression of heartlessness. Yun Ting's expression grew even grimmer as he said, "Good, very good." He then looked at the Nine Lights Heavenly Sovereign and said icily, "I didn't think you would miss a single sacred Yun ancient pellet so much. Is the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace really so poor in terms of shame and resources?" "Ha ha ha ha." The Nine Lights Heavenly Sovereign laughed loudly just like his companion did earlier. The pitiful Heavenly Handle Yun clan's deadline was near, and they simply didn't have the qualifications to earn his anger. It was a sorrowful but doubtless fact. "Surely you're joking, Clan Chief Yun. Why would I come to this sinful place myself for just an ancient pellet? This Heavenly Sovereign would like to borrow one more thing from you besides the sacred Yun ancient pellet," the Nine Lights Heavenly Sovereign said with a smile. "The Cloud Heaven Cauldron." "Bastard!" Yun Xiang couldn't hold in his anger any longer. The Heavenly Dragon Thunder God's spear appeared in his hand with a howl, and he pointed the crackling weapon at the sky and shouted, "The Heavenly Handle Yun clan may have fallen into the dust, but will never be someone the likes of you can trample." "Oh." The desolate Heaven Dragon Chief shot him a sideways glance and said, "Isn't that the dragon spear my clan bestowed upon you back then? You dare point it at me? Hilarious." What had been a present to a friend had now turned into a bestowment. A black flash appeared in his eyes, and the Heavenly Dragon Thunder God's spear suddenly shuddered in fear and declined in power drastically. Yun Xiang clenched his teeth as the weapon shivered violently in his hand. "Get out," Yun Xiang said slowly. It was as ruthless as it was powerless. "Clan Chief Yun, I'd advise you to think over your decision." The Nine Lights Heavenly Sovereign chuckled. "Do you really think that we'd be happy to leave empty-handed after coming to this place personally? The only power who has the right to judge us is the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect." Yun Ting's expression grew darker and darker. "Aren't you afraid that your deeds will offend the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect?" "Well said." Not only did the threat slide off the Nine Lights Heavenly Sovereign and the desolate Heaven Dragon Chief's backs like it was nothing, they smiled enigmatically at Yun Ting and said, "Has your mind failed you already? Do you still not understand why we're here today?" The flash of surprise turned into realization, and Yun Ting's complexion turned as white as death in an instant. "It can't be you. There's no point talking any longer," the first Grand Elder said with a sigh. "Let us fight." Just like that, a terrible battle broke out above the Heavenly Handle Yun clan. They were ready for this day to come since a long time ago, but they didn't expect the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace and the desolate Heavenly Dragon clan to be their tormentors, not the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect. The moment the clash began, it was clear that the Heavenly Handle Yun clan was at a complete disadvantage. Tens of thousands of years ago, the Heavenly Handle Yun clan was a realm king clan and the indisputable tyrant of the region. But after being branded as a criminal and imprisoned in this so-called sinful region for such a long time, they had long since fallen into complete decline. Today, they couldn't fight even one of their oppressors, much less both of them together. "Clan Chief Yun, it's been years since I've had a chance to test your divine might," said the Nine Lights Heavenly Sovereign with a chuckle before manifesting a sword between his fingers. When Yun Ting was an honored divine master, the Nine Lights Heavenly Sovereign was just a junior who could do nothing more than kneel before his superior. But now, he was bold enough to stand above Yun Ting. Yun Ting didn't say a word. He simply manifested a lightning spear in his hand and covered the sky in purple lightning. RRRMB? Tens of thousands of lightning bolts flashed at once the moment Yun Ting and the Nine Lights Heavenly Sovereign clashed against one another. The sky became covered in black clouds, and the world within hundreds of kilometers of the battlefield reacted violently toward the battle. "Ungrateful thing, die!" Yun Xiang shouted and charged straight for the desolate Heaven Dragon Chief. "Hee, you overestimate yourself," the Dragon Chief said while looking down on Yun Xiang. Instead of dodging out of the way, he lifted his palm and made a pushing motion. A 1,000-meter-long dragon claw crawling with black, devilish lightning appeared out of nowhere and dropped right on top of Yun Xiang. The dragon claw left black ripples behind the space it traveled. The black lightning crawling across its surface was even boiling like a tidal wave. Yun Xiang paused for an instant, but he didn't display any intentions of backing off at all. He let out a roar, unleashed his profound handle, and charged toward the attack with even greater power than before. Boom! There was a dull noise of impact, and Yun Xiang's force field popped utterly like a crushed bubble. He dropped from the sky like a meteor before crashing heavily against the ground. Yun Xiang was a level 8 divine sovereign with a blue-colored heavenly handle. His overall strength was only second to the clan chief. However, the desolate Heaven Dragon Chief had defeated him in a single blow. Everyone in the Heavenly Handle Yun clan was shocked by his defeat, but Yun Xiang reappeared in a burst of thunder before they could exclaim their shock. Feeling both angry and murderous, he charged toward the desolate Heaven Dragon Chief once more. However, the dragon claw that hadn't lost all of its power hit him again before he managed to fly 30 meters above the ground. Boom! The Heavenly Dragon Thunder God's spear flew out of his hand, and the terrible black thunder destroyed his clothes and bloodied him from head to toe. He was thrown back like a spilling blood bag before he crashed heavily on the ground 5 kilometers away, twitching. The fact that he wasn't able to get back to his feet immediately proved just how bad his injuries were. Ying'er, Lord Yun Xiang. The scene destroyed more than half of the Yun clansmen's faith in their warriors. When Yun Ting shouted, he lost his concentration for a split second and was struck directly in the chest by the 9 light sword formation. He too left behind a trail of blood before collapsing on the ground. Clan Chief, the roars became even more despairing and sorrowful. The 9 lights Heavenly Sovereign didn't press his advantage. Instead, he looked at the shrine and said to the desolate Heaven Dragon Chief, "That over there is the Heavenly Handle Yun clan's ancestral shrine. The sacred Yun ancient pellet and the Cloud Heaven cauldron must be there as well." "You dare!" The 9 lights Heavenly Sovereign's voice caused Yun Ting's pupils to shrink violently. It was because the former's guess was spot on. He flew into the sky, but his face turned pale the second he summoned his profound energy. He then spat out a dozen mouthfuls of blood in succession. "He, it seems that you're right, Heavenly Sovereign," the desolate Heaven Dragon Chief said with a laugh before lifting his arm, and the giant dragon claw dropped directly on the ancestral shrine. Stop!" Yun Ting roared angrily while spitting blood, but he was powerless to stop what was going on in front of him. Boom! There was a terrific explosion, and the ancient stones that made up the ancestral shrine scattered instantly beneath the attack. However, the desolate Heaven Dragon Chief's smile suddenly froze at this moment. 3 people were exposed after the ancient shrine was destroyed. There was a young man with his back facing toward the crowd, an unconscious girl in his lap, and a masked woman leaning lazily but elegantly against a pillar. The dragon claw that had destroyed Yun Xiang easily was frozen in the sky. To others, it looked as if he had paused his attack on purpose, but only the desolate Heaven Dragon Chief knew that an invisible barrier was blocking the claw's path. No matter how hard he tried, he wasn't able to move it even an inch closer to his target. Even the pressure and destructive power inside the dragon claw was completely blocked for some reason. The 9 lights Heavenly Sovereign's eyes grew more focused. "Well, I suppose it's only natural for the ancestral shrine to have a good defensive barrier." "No, it's not a barrier." The confidence and arrogance in the desolate Heaven Dragon Chief's voice had clearly been replaced by deep shock. The 9 lights Heavenly Sovereign abruptly looked sideways. On the ground, every member of the Yun clan, especially Yun Ting and the elders, were staring at the ancestral shrine in shock as well. Everyone's gaze was set on Yun Qi. Carrying Yun Shang gently with his left arm, he slowly raised his right hand before making a sudden grab at the dragon claw behind him. Buzz! A rapidly expanding whirlpool of power appeared in the way of the giant dragon claw. The moment they made contact, the dragon's claws immediately started twisting into horrific shapes. "Ugh!" The desolate Heaven Dragon Chief's pupils contracted, but he reacted quickly and created devilish lightning around the dragon claw, growling. However, it lasted for only an instant before Yun Qi balled his hand into a fist. Crack! The claws were infused with the draconic might of a divine sovereign, but they broke all at the same time before being torn right off at the joints. "Ah!" The dragon claw image dissipated on the spot as the desolate Heaven Dragon Chief groaned heavily. He swayed unsteadily as blood flew off his right arm. The image might just have been a manifestation of his power, but it was ultimately tied to his life force. He clutched his right arm and stared at Yun Qi in shock. The 9 lights Heavenly Sovereign was no longer smiling either. "Ah!" A raspy groan escaped Yun Ting's throat as he stared at the ancestral shrine like someone had cast a petrification spell on him. The lightning spear he was holding slipped through his grasp and hit the ground with a clang. Yun Xiang had just gotten back up to his feet before he was stunned by what he was seeing. "Who are you?" the desolate Heaven Dragon Chief asked. Even now, his right arm was still hurting. What stunned him more than anything was the fact that the power that had broken his dragon claw was clearly that of a divine king. "He's not a member of the Heavenly Handle Yun clan," the Nine Lights Heavenly Sovereign said. Every Heavenly Handle Yun clansman possessed a unique lightning aura, but it was completely absent from Yun Qi's body. Moreover, he would have been famous throughout Thousand Desolation Realm if he really did serve the Heavenly Handle Yun clan. "Leave," said Yun Qi with his back still facing toward the crowd. Yun Shang's internal injuries were extremely severe, and her profound veins were in complete shambles. Even with the divine miracle of life, it would take a considerable amount of time to heal her fully. He didn't wish to be disturbed during this time. There was no one in the entire Thousand Desolation Realm who dared to utter that word to them. Both of their eyes chilled at the same time as the Nine Lights Heaven Sovereign said, "Fellow cultivator, you're not a member of the Heavenly Handle Yun clan. You absolutely have the right to stay out of this. So please don't make a foolish decision and throw away your life." It was clear that Yun Qi's display of power had shaken them quite a bit. Even someone as powerful as the Nine Lights Heavenly Sovereign didn't wish to fight him if possible. "Stay out of this and leave this place now, and this chief can pretend that that transgression has never happened," the Desolate Heaven Dragon Chief declared. "You won't get a second chance after this." Yun Qi gave Yun Shang a gentle push and sent her flying toward Qianye Ying'er. But Qianye Ying'er frowned and pointed a finger at Yun Shang, causing the girl to land very not gently beside her feet. She had never liked being touched regardless of gender. "Protect her and I'll restore you back to Divine Master in 3 days' time," Yun Qi said. "Heh." Qianye Ying'er smiled coldly at him before replying, "Your time with the girl was less than the time I slept with you, and this is the treatment she gets. How disillusioning." Yun Qi turned around and slowly floated into the sky. He stared coldly at the Nine Lights Heaven Sovereign and the Desolate Heaven Dragon Chief. The air, no, space itself suddenly froze without warning. The sudden change in atmosphere even caused the two sides who were engaged in battle to stop fighting, their attention now drawn toward the sky. The Yun clansmen especially were exchanging glances with each other. Some of them looked surprised, and even more looked confused and disbelieving. "So, you definitely want to fight against us and the Desolate Heaven Dragon Chief, is that correct?" The Nine Lights Heavenly Sovereign asked for confirmation again. The young man in front of him was eerily young, and his profound aura was definitely that of a level 10 divine king. "This is your last chance," Yun Qi said darkly. "Leave or die." Ever since Yun Qi returned to the Heavenly Handle Yun clan and saw what had happened to Yun Shang, he had been holding in an evil mood that seared at the walls of his heart. It was because no life besides Yun Shang was precious to him, and no one's life or death was more important than Yun Shang's safety. Therefore, if the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace and the Desolate Heaven Dragon clan chose to back off now, he really wouldn't do anything to stop them. He would simply return to Yun Shang and continue healing her. He. The Desolate Heaven Dragon Chief shook his wrist and sneered as if he had heard a funny joke. He said, "I admit that your ability to destroy my image is impressive, but in the end, you're just another suicidal fool who has overestimated his abilities." "Hidden Sword," the Nine Lights Heavenly Sovereign ordered. "Go test him." A man carrying a dark sword aura responded to his master's call by flying into the sky and summoning a 100-meter-long sword projection. He stabbed his weapon directly at Yun Qi. There were 9 palaces in the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace, and Venerable Hidden Sword was the palace master of the Hidden Sword Palace. Yun Qi had known his name for a long time. He was Beihan Chu's master and the Hidden Heaven Sword's original master. Yun Qi was only at the 5th level of the Divine King realm back then. There was almost no way he could have defeated Venerable Hidden Sword. But Yun Qi's growth rate was terrifying to say the least. Half a year of progress was worth almost nothing to another profound practitioner at this level, but to Yun Qi, it was enough time to enter a whole new level of power. Yun Qi didn't move a muscle or look away despite facing Venerable Hidden Sword's black sword projection, not even when the attack had almost reached him. Both the people of the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace and the Desolate Heaven Dragon clan were astonished by his lack of response. Is he an idiot? They thought to themselves. Venerable Hidden Sword was a level 8 divine sovereign, and his sword projection was powerful to say the least. It cut space as easily as it would have cut water, and it took only an instant to strike Yun Qi square on. However, the sound of flesh being penetrated and aura explosion didn't enter their ears. Instead, they heard the sound of something breaking. The dark sword wave actually crumbled, no, disintegrated on its own the moment it made contact with Qi's body. It was because the sword projection was clearly disintegrating into black dust, not crumbling to pieces. Bang, 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 bang. The 100-meter sword projection had disintegrated in a ridiculous fashion like a black stream hitting a giant rock that had existed for millennia. Venerable Hidden Sword came to a screeching stop as his pupils widened to the point where they almost filled up the entire eye. It was too short a time for his sword wave to disintegrate completely, but it was less than 30 meters long now. "You, Venerable Hidden Sword," uttered. It was the most shocking and unbelievable scene he had ever seen in his life. Qianye finally lowered his gaze to look at Venerable Hidden Sword before lifting his right hand. He then flicked a finger at the dark sword wave pressing against his chest. The dark sword wave instantly fired back toward Venerable Hidden Sword. It chopped off his arm, penetrated his chest, and punched through like his body was made of paper. The dark sword projection was as weak as a piece of rotten wood before Qianye. However, Qianye had turned it into something as deadly as a demonic blade from hell with the mere flick of a finger. Ooh, ah! Venerable Hidden Sword's body turned stiff as he looked down at the hole where his chest used to be. His eyes lost their color rapidly. He never thought that the sword projection he created with his own power could penetrate his body this easily. This had to be a joke. Something this scary simply couldn't be allowed to exist. Although the sword projection had been created from Venerable Hidden Sword's sword intent, it was ultimately manifested into reality using darkness profound energy. Qianye feared no darkness profound energy because he possessed the heretic god's darkness seed. As the eternal calamity of darkness continued to grow, this immunity was slowly but steadily growing toward complete suppression. If he successfully cultivated the eternal calamity of darkness to the fullest, then complete suppression wouldn't be the end of his growth. He could achieve complete control over any darkness profound energy and terrify even the heavenly laws. He still had a ways to go, of course, but his unique advantage over the profound practitioners of the northern divine region was becoming incredibly obvious, even though it had been less than a year since he started cultivating the eternal calamity of darkness. The experts before him were top-notch even among the upper star realms, but none of them could make him feel threatened or pressured anymore. "Hi, Hidden Sword," the Nine Lights Heavenly Sovereign blurted out in utter shock. But Venerable Hidden Sword didn't respond to his cry. The man was still staring blankly at his wound. All divine sovereigns could recover from penetration wounds easily, but Venerable Hidden Sword couldn't feel his body at all. The last thing he felt was his internal organs dissolving into dust in the darkness. Bang! The dark sword projection vanished, and fountains of blood burst out of the front and back of Venerable Hidden Sword's body. Then he started falling amidst the rain of blood. "Hidden Sword! Master!" The profound practitioners of the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace roared in shock and fright as they pounced towards the falling divine sovereign. Another bolt of emotion thundered through their veins the moment they made contact with Venerable Hidden Sword's body. It was because his body was completely lifeless and cold. The death of any divine sovereign was considered big news even among the upper star realms, much less a level 8 divine sovereign. It was one thing to beat a divine sovereign, and another to kill one due to how lively and powerful they were. However, a perfectly unharmed Venerable Hidden Sword had just died in just a couple of breaths' time. If someone kept a list of the fastest deaths or most bizarre ways to die that ever happened to a divine sovereign in Thousand Desolation realm, then Venerable Hidden Sword might have just broken both records. He's dead," a palace master looked up and said shakily. What?" Both the Nine Lights Heavenly Sovereign and the Desolate Heaven Dragon Chief blurted at the same time. On the Heavenly Handle Yun clan's side, everyone from Clan Chief Yun Ting to the lowliest of disciples felt like someone had swung a hammer at their faces. They were so shocked that they could faint on the spot. That's right, their enemy had died, but instead of joy all they could feel was shock. Is he really Qianye? He's actually this powerful. But Venerable Hidden Sword was a level 8 divine sovereign just like Lord Xianxia. Thump. Xianxia collapsed to his knees even though he had just climbed back to his feet. He couldn't stop trembling all over as he stared at Qianye floating in the sky like a stiff-faced Grim Reaper. You. No traces of arrogance or smile remained on the Nine Lights Heavenly Sovereign's face. Even the weakest person present could hear the fear in his voice. As peak divine sovereigns, Both the Nine Lights Heavenly Sovereign and the Desolate Heaven Dragon Chief had the ability to defeat the Hidden Sword Palace Master in just a short time. But they could never have manipulated his sword projection like it was their own, or killed him this easily. "You're a half-step, divine master," the Desolate Heaven Dragon Chief blurted as his eyes widened. The simple words jolted through everyone's souls like a bolt of divine thunder. Level 10 was the pinnacle of Divine Sovereign Realm, but it definitely wasn't the closest Cultivation Realm to Divine Master Realm. It was because there existed a special limbo between the two realms known as the Half-Step Divine Master Realm. It was a title reserved for profound practitioners who were searching for that final step to become a Divine Master. It was a realm that neither the Nine Lights Heavenly Sovereign nor the Desolate Heaven Dragon Chief even dared to dream of. Although a half-step Divine Master was technically still a Divine Sovereign, anything that had the words Divine Master in it naturally generated respect and pressure in anyone who was below that level. So what if he's a half-step Divine Master? The Nine Lights Heavenly Sovereign's expression darkened when he met Qianye's terrifying gaze. "If we work together, we have nothing to fear from him." "That's right." The Nine Lights Heavenly Sovereign's words reminded the Desolate Heaven Dragon Chief that they weren't the only factions who had shown up today. Even if Qianye really was a half-step Divine Master, he was incapable of threatening the mastermind who supported their actions today. "Attack!" The Desolate Heaven Dragon Chief roared and exploded in darkness. His already imposing figure instantly transformed into a gigantic dragon over 10,000 meters tall. Behind him, the rest of the Desolate Heaven Dragons revealed their true forms as well. Their stamina would deplete quicker, but they would be able to unleash their full power like this. No one was hesitating at a time where even their chief had revealed his true form. Dragons and devilish lightning covered the sky completely and shrouded the earth in darkness for a time. The sheer display of power almost caused the young clansmen to kneel on the ground in fear. The Desolate Heaven Dragon Chief looked down on Qianye with black eyes that looked like an all-consuming abyss. He said, "A dragon should never be provoked into rage, but this chief can give you one last chance to repent." Qianye slowly looked up. The light of a soul erupted from his body, and an azure dragon opened its pitch-black eyes. The roar of a dark dragon god spread his judgment throughout the blue sky. "Get down from there." When the dragon's roar reached the sky above, the draconic might of every Desolate Heaven Dragon, including the Desolate Heaven Dragon Chiefs, crumbled in an instant. Even the black energy in their eyes dissipated, leaving behind only blank fear. Roar, all haughtiness was gone from the dragon's demeanor. They roared again, but this time in fear, before their giant bodies started dropping from the sky like dumplings. Boom, 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 the falling dragons caused a miniature earthquake for a time. It wasn't just the dragons above the heavenly handle Yun clan. The dragons responsible for maintaining the path through the lightning formation had fallen as well. It was such a shocking sight that the whole thing felt like an illusion. The ground of the sinful region was full of holes after the Desolate Heaven Dragons had collapsed to the ground. But instead of growing angry and struggling to rise, these kings of all races actually curled up and shivered like babes instead. They were in their true forms too. The way they did their best to make themselves look smaller and their uncontrollable shivering were pathetic to say the least. It was as if someone had completely popped their courage. The Nine Lights Heavenly Sovereign's eyes bulged when he saw the impossible scene. The fallen dragons that looked like mud stains on the ground, and the shivering Desolate Heaven Dragon Chief. He even felt like he could faint on the spot. Meanwhile, Qianye was dropping down toward the Desolate Heaven Dragon Chief when Ying'er winked into existence. A surge of black energy surrounded the heaven-smiting Devil Emperor sword before he swung it at the Desolate Heaven Dragon Chief. The dragon soul domain intimidated all living beings, but it was especially effective against dragons because the dragon god was their supreme god. As powerful as the Desolate Heaven Dragon Chief might be, the roar of his god still popped his courage and shattered his soul like a balloon. Mentally crushed, the Desolate Heaven Dragon Chief naturally couldn't summon his normal strength at all. The only reason he even remembered to shield himself with his claw was because of his instinct as a divine sovereign, and whatever remained of his consciousness besides fear. However, the fear he was experiencing was something beyond the ability of willpower to defeat. Let alone covering his claw in black lightning, he couldn't even summon a sliver of profound energy. Bang! The Desolate Heaven Dragon Chief's claw was thousands of meters wide, but the heaven-smiting devil emperor sword had cut through it in one hit. This time, it was his real body and not a mere extension of his power. A fountain of foul-smelling blood instantly poured out of the wound like the rain. The desolate heaven dragon chief was a divine sovereign devil dragon. His body was supposed to be as tough as divine steel, even without the protection of his aura. However, the heaven-smiting devil emperor sword had cut through it like it was made of tofu. Roar! The desolate heaven dragon chief let out a blood-curdling roar. Even when he was screaming, it was clear that his voice was painted with deep fear. He didn't try to counter-attack, resist, or even struggle. The only emotions that were reflected in his shivering eyes were fear and begging. He was never this meek even when he was just a child. Unfortunately for him, there was no pity or mercy in Qianye's eyes at all. He appeared above the dragon's head in a flash, gathered black light around the heaven-smiting devil emperor sword and stabbed downward. Bang! Boom! The sword met resistance when it hit the tough skull of a dragon, but it only lasted for a fraction of a second before the skull crumbled beneath the blade. Then, cold, berserk energy poured out of the blade and into the dragon's 30,000-meter-long body. Roog! At this point, the desolate heaven dragon chief's scream had become completely distorted. There was even a semblance of the pride and dignity of a dragon as it screamed like a sinner who was subjected to an eternity of torture at the depths of the purgatory. His screams grew increasingly weak and hopeless as the energy dyed his body black, and it wasn't long before his entire body turned black in color. Boom! Qianye jumped back into the sky while pulling out the heaven-smiting devil emperor sword from the dragon chief's skull. A crack spread from the point of entry to the entire body, and the desolate heaven dragon chief crumbled into black bits and dust just like that. The Nine Lights heavenly sovereign was moving back slowly. For once, the chief palace master who used to look down on the world was demonstrating the adjective ashen-faced perfectly. Cultivation-wise, he was more or less the equal of the desolate heaven dragon chief. But if they were to fight against one another, it was impossible for him to hold out against the latter for an extended period of time. There was a very good reason why dragons were considered the sovereigns of all creatures. A dragon's body and soul were superior to all other creatures in the world. However, Qianye had turned the desolate heaven dragon chief into dust in the blink of an eye. It was almost as fast as when he had killed venerable hidden sword. Clearly, Qianye was telling him through his actions that it would take him even less effort to kill him. But contrary to his imagination, the desolate heaven dragon chief wouldn't have died this quickly if he was anything but a dragon. The desolate heaven dragon chief of the desolate heaven dragon clan, had died without any dignity or honor at all. It was as if he was a long bug someone had decided to stomp on. Without giving the desolate heaven dragon chief a second glance, Qianye surrounded himself in wind, appeared above the next desolate heaven devil dragon with lightning speed and swung his sword. Bang! The sky rained with blood when this dragon was split in half as easily as rotten wood. Qianye was on the third desolate heaven devil dragon already by the time the second dragon was splitting apart. Again, his attack caused the poor creature to explode into a terrifying shower of blood. Boom, 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 boom. 4, 5, 6, 10. Extreme mirage lightning, star god's broken shadow, moon-splitting cascade, and the power of the wind enhanced Qianye's speed to the point where even a divine sovereign could scarcely capture his movement. He executed multiple long-range, instantaneous teleportations in just a fraction of a second, and every time he moved, a dragon would explode into a shower of blood. Half a year ago, Qianye could barely swing the reborn heaven-smiting sword. Now, he had complete control over the weapon. The sound of a devil dragon breaking, crumbling, and exploding devoured every other sound in the world. Even the onlookers' hearts had stopped beating in fear. Desolate dragons were a kind of dragon that controlled devil thunder. It was a true dragon with the strongest body, soul, and power in the whole world. The fact that their natural aura had almost caused the young clansmen to collapse to their knees in fear was proof that these true dragons were no slouches. It was why there was nothing more difficult than killing a dragon no matter what plane they existed in, and it couldn't be carried out by a weak-willed person. However, it was equally a fact that the desolate heaven devil dragons that looked like they were about to wipe out the heavenly Handel Yun clan had collapsed to the ground like frightened worms, and were broken by that pitch-black greatsword in a single hit each. Every one except the desolate heaven dragon chief had crumbled easily like they were made of sand. Not only that, They were curled up and shivering like babies, even though Qianye was killing all of them. Forget retaliating, they couldn't even muster the slightest bit of resistance. 3 breaths. The slaughter had lasted for 3 stifling, dizzying breaths. During this time, over 40 desolate heaven devil dragons had been killed in 1 hit each, and the exploding bodies had transformed the whole settlement into blood-caked purgatory. However, the intimidation brought by the dragon's soul domain was about to disappear. Qianye wouldn't be able to cut them in 1 strike anymore if they recovered from both physical and mental collapse. Qianye suddenly paused in his tracks before looking at his surroundings. Then, an incredibly sinister and cruel smile appeared across his face as he lifted the heaven-smiting devil emperor sword. Ayo! The image of a howling heavenly wolf appeared, and the heaven-smiting devil emperor sword fell downward. It was the most basic form of the heavenly wolf hell god's tome, the heavenly wolf slash, but 7 times the image. The wolf images tore 7 azure cracks that stretched from the sky all the way to the ground. Everything that was standing in their way, the earth, space, the shivering desolate heaven devil dragons, had disappeared into nothing. The dragon soul domain's effects finally vanished, and the surviving desolate heaven devil dragons shakily took to the sky. Wherever they looked, there were the shattered bodies of dragons, giant pools of blood, and the black powder that was formerly their chief. Although the dragon soul domain was no longer affecting them, they continued to shiver from head to toe. Every single scale on their bodies were shaking in fear. As the supreme race, unleashing their aura was normally all it took to make all living beings cower in fear. They had never imagined that there would be a day where they were trampled upon, frightened, and humiliated this badly like they were nothing more than insignificant worms. Of course, the desolate heaven dragon clan weren't the only ones who were scared out of their wits. Everyone from the disciples to the palace masters of 9 Lights' heavenly palace was as pale as a ghost. Some of them had even dropped their weapons without realizing it. Right now, the 9 Lights' heavenly sovereign was moving backwards step by step. He wasn't consciously trying to escape, however. It was more of an instinctive reaction. An expert naturally won fear and respect, but Qianye's strength had been far beyond his imagination. The only thing that was worse was Qianye's viciousness and brutality. He had slaughtered the dragons like they were dogs. Who on earth are you? It was a short question, but the 9 Lights' heavenly sovereign had to exert every bit of strength to utter it out loud. He could even hear his own teeth chattering. On the ground, the young clansmen were staring at Qianye like he was a living devil god. No one could say a word at all. Was this really that Qianye who had escorted Xianxia home and stayed with their clan for almost a whole month? Qianye didn't give him a reply. He simply turned around, raised his sword, and pointed it slowly at the 9 Lights' heavenly sovereign. The 9 Lights' heavenly sovereign's pupils contracted as if the blade had stabbed into his eyes. Then he let out an odd scream before running away with his back facing toward Qianye. At this moment, he didn't look like an overlord at all. He was just a dog whose courage had failed him completely. Whoosh! Ever since Qianye had obtained the wind seed, his maximum speed had drastically increased. There was a blast of air that sounded like thunder, and he appeared in front of the escaping divine sovereign in just the blink of an eye. Then he swung the giant sword straight at the 9 Lights' heavenly sovereign's face. His vision covered by encroaching darkness. The 9 Lights' heavenly sovereign let out an odd scream and barely summoned a 9 Lights sword formation with flailing hands. Boom, the sword formation was destroyed in a bang, and the divine sovereign was sent flying like a top while screaming. Every bone in his chest was completely shattered. That being said, he was still the chief palace master of the 9 Lights' heavenly palace, and he hadn't suffered a complete mental collapse like the desolate heaven dragon chief. Had he fought Qianye properly with everything he had, he wouldn't have been defeated in a single exchange. Unfortunately for him, he was scared out of his wits. There was nothing he could do to resist Qianye. Boom. The 9 Lights' heavenly sovereign crashed several thousand meters into the ground. Qianye changed his stance slightly and was about to give chase when an amiable voice suddenly reached him from afar. "Please don't kill him, fellow cultivator." An old man dressed in blue clothes appeared to the south. He had a kind face and he held an old, gray whisk. He examined Qianye with a smile. Qianye's eyes slowly moved to the side. Yun Ting, Yun Xiang, and the Yun elders froze when they heard the voice. When the old man appeared, deep respect rose to their face as they shuddered. "What's wrong?" Qianye asked the old man. "Do you want to die too?" Qianye's question nearly caused the Yun clansman's gall to burst with fear. Great Elder Yunjian hurriedly rose into the sky and said, "Yunqi, don't be impolite, he's—" Yunqi's eyes turned cold, and he sent a pitch-black sword aura flying toward Yunjian. By the time the Great Elder fell back to the ground, his arms were missing and his body was drenched in blood. Yunjian groaned as his body spasmed in pain. Yunqi's frigid voice entered his ears as he lay on top of shattered rocks. "Who do you think you are? How dare you tell me what to do?" Great Elder, the Yun clansmen blurted in shock at the unexpected scene. Both the second Elder Yun Fu and third Elder Yun Hua felt their hearts skip a beat when they hurried forward to check Yunjian's injury. The Yun clansmen were unaware of what had happened earlier, but they did. When they recalled what they had said to Yunqi, what Yunqi had said to them, and his relationship with Yun Shang, they felt like a giant stone was sitting inside their hearts. They couldn't breathe under the pressure at all. The rest of the elders and the grand elders looked ashen-faced as well, but no one dared to direct their ire at Yunqi. The Yun clansmen weren't the only ones who were confused. The shaking, desolate Heaven-Devil dragons and Nine Lights Heavenly Palace profound practitioners were dumbfounded as well. What was going on? Wasn't he recruited by the Heavenly Handle Yun clan to save them? Why was he beating his own people to death? The old man in blue clothes was clearly surprised as well. The smile on his face grew more amiable as he said, "I understand now, you are neither a member of the Heavenly Handle Yun clan nor a friend of theirs. It even looks like you hold a grudge against them. I see now that everything is just a misunderstanding." Although Yunqi had slaughtered hundreds of desolate Heaven-Devil dragons, killed the desolate Heaven Dragon Chief, severely wounded the Nine Lights Heavenly Sovereign in one strike, and even sword-slapped half the life out of the Yun clan's Great Elder, the old man continued to chuckle like nothing had happened at all. For some reason, he didn't look shocked or afraid in the slightest. It was a fact that a terrible pressure was hidden behind his graceful, godlike demeanor. The old man cast his sight downwards and asked, "Clan Chief Yun, who is this expert you've invited to your clan?" Yun Ting opened his mouth and bowed deeply toward the old man. Only then did he answer with a bit of difficulty, "Venerable empty mind, this expert's name is Yunqi. He is our honored guest." "Honored guest," the old man said with a smile. "Your hospitality must be lacking then. It would appear that your honored guest is very unhappy." Yun Ting wanted to look at Yunqi, but he was afraid to look him in the eye. He couldn't say a word for a long time. Never in his wildest dreams did he imagine that Yunqi was this powerful. The only reason he stayed behind was because of Yun Shang. Had he successfully gotten into Yunqi's good graces, the Heavenly Handle Yun clan situation might have been a lot less dire. But regret, self-loathing, and powerlessness tore at his heart and soul like countless devils. He did not dare to even recall what had happened in the ancestral shrine a moment ago. Unfortunately, there was no such thing as a cure for regret in this world. Meanwhile, at the ancestral shrine, Qianye Ying'er hadn't moved an inch since the start of the fight. She was still leaning lazily against the stone pillar, with an unconscious Yun Shang right next to her feet. She shot a glance at the horrific floor of dragon blood and corpses before whispering to herself, "So much hatred. Long Bai probably doesn't realize that he condemned every dragon in the world to death when he killed Qianye." She suddenly recalled the few times Yunqi had lost control and taken it out on her. Sometimes he would cry out the word master. She suddenly narrowed her eyes and uttered coldly, "In the end, Snow Song Realm's famous Ice Immortal of the North is just a lecherous woman on the inside." What a joke. Fellow cultivator Yun, Venerable Empty Mind swung his whisk once and said amiably toward Yunqi, "Since this is just a misunderstanding, surely we can come to an agreement. The reason the desolate Heaven Dragon clan and the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace showed up today is entirely private, and they attacked you only because they mistook you for a member of the Heavenly Handle Yun clan. You are certainly not their target. The desolate Heaven Dragon clan suffered huge losses, and the Dragon Chief himself has died for his transgressions. I'm sure they have paid a high enough price to quell your anger, haven't they? Please show mercy now that the misunderstanding is resolved. I'm sure that both Desolate Heaven and Nine Lights won't forget this. Wouldn't it be nice if we can drop our enmity and all become allies instead?" Yunqi examined him for a moment before relaxing visibly. "And who are you?" This old man's aura was similar to, no, slightly stronger than the Nine Lights Heavenly Sovereign. He was obviously another peak divine sovereign with incredibly high status. His confidence alone revealed who he belonged to in this thousand desolation realm. "He," the old man said. "This humble one is the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect's chief enforcer, Xianxia. If you don't think it's beneath you, you may address me as Devotee Empty Mind." Thousand Desolation Divine Sect. The words themselves seemed to carry a heavenly weight which intimidated all creation, and that wouldn't be a mistake in the Thousand Desolation realm. Here, the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect was the infinite heavens themselves. Tens of thousands of years ago, when the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect received a King Realm mandate from the Burning Moon Realm to replace the Heavenly Handle Yun clan as the new realm King Sect, their position had become absolutely unshakable. Even the realm's old name, Heavenly Handle Yun Realm, was changed to Thousand Desolation Realm. Since then, the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect had subjected the Heavenly Handle Yun clan to countless cruel punishments. Even their final fate was up to the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect to decide. The Thousand Desolation Divine Sect rose, and the Heavenly Handle Yun clan declined. Now, the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect had grown to the point where they could easily decide the life or death of the Heavenly Handle Yun clan, even without a King Realm mandate. The Heavenly Handle Yun clan did everything in their power to curry favor with the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect. Their efforts only increased as the day of the deadline drew ever closer. The Thousand Desolation Divine Sect's unclear attitude also nurtured that hope further. The realization that they were facing the chief enforcer of the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect made the Heavenly Handle Yun clan act even more humbly. They did not dare to show even the slightest impoliteness or disobedience. The Thousand Desolation Divine Sect. The corner of Yun Qi's eyes seemed to twitch a bit. "That is correct." Devotee Empty Mind stroked his beard before chuckling. "You've probably heard of us, I'm sure. If fellow cultivator Yun is displeased with this sinful clan, why not be a guest at the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect? We will certainly give you the treatment a guest of honor deserves." "If you're a member of the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect, then why are you here?" Yun Qi asked in an indifferent tone. It was difficult to identify the emotion behind his voice. "Surely you aren't here to fish for a quick profit, are you?" Devotee Empty Mind smiled and shook his head. He said, "We may have been ordered by the Burning Moon King Realm to punish a sinful clan, but we would never stoop so low. This humble one rushed here simply because he heard that the desolate Heaven Dragon clan and the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace had descended upon the sinful region, and was afraid that it might give birth to great chaos. I have come to act as a mediator, so to speak. Still, this one considers it lucky that it resulted in a meeting with fellow cultivator Yun." Yun Ting bowed deeply again after hearing this, saying, "Our sinful clan is very grateful that Venerable Empty Mind would travel so far to protect us. Our sinful clan doesn't know how to repay Venerable Empty Mind's kindness." The rest of the Yun disciples hurriedly performed their own thankful salutes and bows toward Venerable Empty Mind. Although everyone knew that the old man was probably lying through his teeth, they couldn't wait to prostrate themselves and express their infinite gratitude toward him. "I see," Yun Qi replied as if placated. He slowly lowered the heaven-smiting Devil Emperor sword, and the abyssal darkness that surrounded the weapon had even thinned a little. Yun Qi's reaction was perfectly normal in Devotee Empty Mind and everyone else's opinion. Yun Qi might be bold enough to kill the desolate Heaven Dragon Chief and the Nine Lights Heavenly Sovereign, but who would dare offend the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect in their own territory? Not to mention that the chief enforcer himself had been nothing but friendly and admiring toward him. "In that case," Yun Qi said in a leisurely tone, "you may go rest in peace." Devotee Empty Mind's smile froze. By the time his expression changed, a sword beam was already falling toward his face, pitch-black darkness devouring all the light in his vision. Although surprised, Devotee Empty Mind was on his guard from the start. He immediately swung his whisk forward, every strand on the weapon discharging black light powerful enough to shatter mountains and seas. However, the power he unleashed lasted only an instant before it suddenly vanished like mud in water. Although Devotee Empty Mind had already witnessed Yun Qi's power before, he didn't realize how terrifying it really was until he tasted it firsthand. His reaction was extremely swift. He managed to escape Yun Qi's attack because he gave up his defense and propelled himself several kilometers away with a speed that was almost unnatural. Meanwhile, the location he was at just a moment ago had been engulfed in a terrible whirlpool of darkness. "Yun Qi!" Devotee Empty Mind broke out in a cold sweat as he shouted with a frigid expression. The only reason he was on his guard was because he was cautious by nature. He never thought that Qianye would dare attack him after learning that he was the chief enforcer of the Thousand Desolation divine sect. "How dare you? Ooh-ah!" Boom. Golden flames suddenly exploded behind his back. The sea of flames parted to reveal Qianye. Although devotee Empty Mind's decisiveness and speed were impressive, there was simply no way he could be faster than Qianye. Devotee Empty Mind screamed as the golden crow flames burned him. He detonated his own energy again and again, and successfully suppressed over half of the golden crow flames that were licking at his body. But Qianye appeared behind him again like a ghost and smacked scarlet phoenix flames, this time at the exact same spot. The attack nearly burned through the old man there and then. "Qianye!" Devotee Empty Mind roared in pain and anger. "You're making an enemy out of us, ah!" Devotee Empty Mind did everything in his power to suppress the flames and escape. The whole place reeked of dragon blood, and he wasn't stupid enough to think that he could defeat Qianye. Unfortunately, how could he live if Qianye wanted him dead? Buzz! Qianye didn't give chase. He simply clenched his hand into a fist. The golden crow flame and the phoenix flame that were burning Devotee Empty Mind alive immediately started merging into one. They quickly became the much more powerful crimson divine flames. The only thing scarier than a drastic increase in the enemy's power was the drastic increase of one's pain. It was terrible enough to wring out a tearful, despairing howl from even a peak divine sovereign. Devotee Empty Mind struggled in midair before collapsing to the ground abruptly. He rolled back and forth on the ground like a dying larva, but the crimson flames that clung to his bones like termites showed almost no signs of fading at all. Bang! Qianye dropped down from the sky and stepped on Devotee Empty Mind's chest with his right foot. The force was so great that the poor man's chest caved in like it was made of rotten wood. Piwa, blood spilled out of Devotee Empty Mind's mouth like a fountain. His confidence and elegant outlook had long since been replaced by pain and fear. You dare." At first, he wanted to threaten Qianye and say, "All those who threaten the Thousand Desolation divine sect are digging their own grave." But he quickly changed his mind halfway and begged, "Fellow cultivator, you and I aren't enemies. There's no need for. You didn't have to die, but then you lied to me. There's almost nothing I hate more than someone lying to my face." Qianye was stepping on Devotee Empty Mind, but his gaze was directed to the front. "You were hiding here from the start, but you lied to me and said that you're here as a mediator. Since you think I'm an idiot, I have no choice but to relieve you of your life. Mercy, fellow cultivator." A lie was all it took to drive this ruthless madman to kill him, the chief enforcer of the Thousand Desolation divine sect. Whatever resistance the old man might have mustered crumbled into nothing as he begged in the humblest manner possible. "I, Xianxia, swear to be your friend. No, I swear to be your servant. I will obey your orders absolutely. Please, Venerable One, mercy." Qianye! Yunting cried out in panic as he half-crawled towards the young man. The faces of the young clansmen following behind him looked just as bloodless. He opened his arms and begged shakily, "Please, please show mercy. Please don't kill him, or the heavenly handle Yun clan will crush." Qianye stepped on Devotee Empty Mind again, and this time the horrifically burned old man exploded into a black flash. Some of his body parts flew at least several kilometers away. Yunting staggered and fell on his knees. His face became as pale as death. Qianye withdrew his legs slowly before turning to look at him with dark eyes. None of the blood or dust from the explosion touched his upper torso at all. "What the FCK does the fate of the heavenly handle Yun clan have to do with me?" Mine were peak divine sovereigns who were considered invincible unless they were up against a divine master. They would be important no matter which upper star realm they belonged to, yet they had died at Qianye's hand like ground cabbage. Their deaths were also absolutely humiliating. It's over," Yunting murmured unconsciously while slumped on the ground with blank eyes. The Thousand Desolation divine sect was the executor the Burning Moon King realm had chosen to carry out their punishment. They were the reason the heavenly handle Yun clan had declined this far, but their tormentor was also the one group they couldn't afford to anger no matter what. Devotee Empty Mind wasn't just a member of the Thousand Desolation divine sect. He was their chief enforcer. In terms of status, he was at least top 5 within the Thousand Desolation divine sect. And now, he was killed in the heavenly handle Yun clan, even if they weren't the ones who killed him. The Thousand Desolation divine sect was sure to vent their fury on them. They knew from the start that it was unlikely for them to survive, but now, there was definitely no escaping their destruction. Every Yun clansman behind Yun Ting shriveled like a scroll. The only color visible on their faces was gray despair. However, no one dared to scold Yun Qi for his mistake. They didn't even have the courage to look him in the eye. Divine sovereigns normally didn't fight to the death unless they were irreconcilable enemies. But Yun Qi had executed a stranger just because something they said was disagreeable to him. They had never seen someone so terrifying, ruthless, and brutal until today. The remaining desolate heaven devil dragons and 9 lights heavenly palace profound practitioners moved very slowly and quietly away from Yun Qi. Their footsteps were fearful and cowardly. They were afraid to make any noise for fear that this madman would crush them like he had crushed devotee empty mind beneath his foot. Suddenly, Yun Qi halted in his tracks and looked toward the ground. There were still some crimson divine flames licking the ground without a sound, but a nearly invisible layer of darkness seemed to be lurking around the edges. Its presence was slightly different from the crimson flames he had created prior to coming to the northern divine region. Light passed through Yun Qi's pupils several times, and a pitch-black flame surged from the depths of his soul. Bang, the ground exploded, and from it emerged the 9 lights heavenly sovereign. The blood-drenched divine sovereign didn't try to run away with all his might, however. Instead, he pounced straight for Qianye Ying'er, or more accurately, the girl lying by her feet, Xianxia. He could have come out a long time ago, but he wisely chose to hide himself after Yun Qi scared the shit out of him, and devotee empty mind showed up to pacify Yun Qi. At first, he thought that Yun Qi would cease his rampage upon hearing the name of the Thousand Desolation divine sect. He never thought that Yun Qi would go so far as to kill devotee empty mind. Not even a million FCKs were enough to describe the 9 lights heavenly sovereign's feelings right now. The all-important venerable empty mind had begged for his life like a dog, but Yun Qi still killed him without any hesitation. If Yun Qi was willing to take things this far, then there was no way he would allow him to live. However, an idea suddenly pierced through his fear-clouded mind. When he saw Yun Qi for the first time, the latter had been hugging an unconscious girl. Yun Qi's method was ruthless and brutal, but he had made sure to cancel out all of the desolate Heaven Dragon Chief's attack completely before retaliating. He was obviously trying to protect the girl. The idea was without a doubt a ray of hope to the cornered 9 lights heavenly sovereign. Thus, the moment he was discovered, he immediately pounced toward Xianxia with his fastest speed. His only hope of escaping this place alive was to use the unconscious girl as his hostage. Qianye Ying'er's presence had automatically gone over his head. After all, what did a peaked divine sovereign have to worry about from a divine king? The eruption of activity drew cries from every direction. However, 9 lights heavenly sovereign had acted without warning, and he was too fast for the Yun clansmen to stop anyway. Yun Qi was still staring at the crimson divine flames that refused to die beneath his feet like a statue. It was impossible to tell what the young man was thinking. Qianye Ying'er reacted by grabbing Xianxia with her profound energy and dodging to the side. However, the 9 lights heavenly sovereign's pressure combined with her own panicked movement meant that she was off balance the second she made a move. Of course, the idea that a divine king could escape with a burden right under the nose of a peaked divine sovereign like him was nothing more than a pipe dream. Growling, he extended a hand toward Xianxia and tried to draw her into his palm. He wasn't even looking at Qianye Ying'er. However, a blur suddenly overcame his vision, and before he realized it, the girls had escaped his aura, his sight, and even his spiritual senses. At the same time, the sound of something being severed, so soft that he nearly missed it, entered his ears. Qianye Ying'er reappeared behind the 9 lights heavenly sovereign like a ghost. She could be seen putting a golden snake back around her astonishingly delicate waist. Xianxia was tossed quite some distance away before crashing heavily against the ground. The girl let out a soft groan and slowly woke up. The 9 lights heavenly sovereign was still flying forward when he tried to halt his momentum and turn around. However, he quickly discovered that neither his head nor his body were responding to his thoughts, and his vision was fading gradually into a gray and white canvas. The last image to enter his vision was the symmetrically cut pieces of his body and the golden light that caused it. Bang! 7 rays of golden light neatly split the 9 lights heavenly sovereign into 8 pieces before the chaotic surge of profound energy caused his body parts to become scattered all over the place like calabash. Thump, the Yun clansmen's barely straightened knees hit the ground yet again. Everyone's mouth was wide open, but no sound came out. It was almost as if their throats were clogged by some invisible object. The Nine Lights' Heavenly Sovereign was dead. An instant. He had died in only an instant. It had been so quick that he was gone before he could let out a scream. Qianye finally looked up and stared at Qianye Ying'er. A cold, dangerous gleam passed through his eyes. He knew better than anyone the limit of Qianye Ying'er's power. Right now, she was a level 10 Divine Sovereign, and he had no doubt that she could beat Nine Lights' Heavenly Sovereign in a fair fight due to the Devil Emperor's bloodline. However, it wouldn't have been an easy fight. Still, it was a fact that she had cut the Nine Lights' Heavenly Sovereign into pieces and killed him in an instant. The Nai Yuan stone's main purpose was to alter one's aura, but she had used it to bait her enemies perfectly. She was once a peak divine master, so it was only natural that she had perfect mastery over her divine sovereign profound energy. This advantage might not mean much in a direct fight, but in terms of sheer explosive strength, it wasn't something any divine sovereign at her level could compare to. Not to mention that she also had the Divine Oracle, the Brahma golden soft sword that was connected directly to her soul. All these factors combined perfectly into the ability to instantly annihilate an opponent at her level. This was Qianye Ying'er's deadliest power. This was also why he had intentionally slowed down Qianye Ying'er's recovery, never allowing her to exceed his ability to control her. Her true profound strength was exposed the moment she attacked her enemy. Yunting murmured unconsciously, "Peak, Divine Sovereign." Finally, Qianye turned away from Qianye Ying'er and looked at Xianxia. He appeared next to the girl in an instant and lifted her up to his lap. Xianxia batted her eyelids and looked at his with tearful eyes. She said, "Senior, I." Her voice was as tiny as a mosquito, and tears kept sliding down her cheeks. No profound practitioner could accept losing all their profound strength in a single day, much less a 16-year-old who was given the absolute highest of expectations. "Xianxia woke up," Yunting murmured again as he watched from afar. He looked just as listless as before. "Chief," said the elders and clansmen while moving up to Yunting with weak legs and dark expressions. "What should we do? What should we?" Yunting couldn't say anything. He simply got to his feet and dragged his weak legs toward Qianye and Xianxia. When he passed by Qianye Ying'er, he could feel a clear chill seeping through his entire body. "Xianxia," Yunting said while bowing his head. He looked nothing like a clan chief should. All that he was right now was a pained old man. "We did you wrong. Get out." Qianye's sleeves flapped for a second. He himself didn't move a muscle. Whoosh. A violent wind instantly threw Yunting and all approaching Yun clansmen out of the way. He wasn't looking at either the Yun clansmen or the escaping desolate Heaven Devil dragons and Nine Lights' Heavenly Palace profound practitioners. Just like before, he pressed a palm toward Xianxia's chest, drew a strange pattern, and resumed healing her with the divine miracle of life. Xianxia's internal injuries had stabilized, and her shattered profound veins were healed with the divine miracle of life. However, not even he could recover her lost cultivation. She would have to start from the very bottom, the elementary profound realm. "Senior, you really came back to save me." Her words were as soft as a whisper. "Don't speak," Qianye replied in an equally soft voice. He pressed a finger to her forehead and said, "Sleep. Everything will be fine once you wake." "Can I make a selfish wish, Qianye? Please, don't hurt my clansmen," she begged Qianye with tearful eyes. "It wasn't on purpose." Her weak, gentle voice was carried into every Yun clansman's ears by the cold wind. Yunting, Xiang, and the elders all looked down at their feet and shook with shame and regret. Qianye's finger glowed white, and Xianxia instantly closed her eyes and fell into a deep sleep. Although the heavenly handle Yun clan had decided to refine the sacred Yun ancient pellet for Xianxia, it definitely wasn't a choice that was made out of malice. In fact, from the standpoint of their clan, they were absolutely the last people to wish harm upon Xianxia. He didn't doubt them on this. However, Xianxia didn't know that the first thing Yunting and the rest of them did after she fell into a coma was to abandon her in the name of preserving her purple profound handle, not save her life. In fact, the blood transfer formation would have ensured a horrible death. Qianye carried Xianxia and entered the room he had been staying in. Qianye Ying'er followed behind him and closed the door. Everything returned to silence. The Yun clansmen, kneeling, standing, or slumped on the ground, all looked frozen and lost. The room they were in was surrounded by an invisible barrier that kept all noise from entering, not that anyone would even dare to come close. When several hours had passed, Qianye finally removed his hand from Xianxia's body. Xianxia was still sleeping quietly. Right now, her body was enveloped in a fantastical and divine layer of light, profound energy. Light, profound energy was supposed to be the bane of all darkness, profound energy, and profound practitioners. But in Qi's hands, it was capable of miraculous recovery. It didn't leave behind any damage at all. Her internal injuries were gone, and her shattered, profound veins were reborn. However, no one could predict or heal the scars in her heart. Qianye Ying'er opened her eyes and broke out of her meditative trance. The first thing that came out of her mouth was ridicule. Her very first thought after regaining consciousness was to protect those clansmen who created her nightmares. How foolish and naive. At least she can still be naive, Qianye said slowly. We can't be naive even if we want to. Qianye Ying'er stopped breathing for a couple of seconds. Finally, she said, "When are you planning to leave? Please don't tell me you're going to stay behind again." "We're leaving right away," Qianye said. "Very good." Qianye Ying'er walked forwards and grabbed him by the wrist. "Let's go." Suddenly, she came to a certain realization and flung Qianye's hand away, saying, "What are you waiting for? If you know you have no right to be naive, then you shouldn't have chosen to stay behind from the start." HMPH? Qianye erased the barrier with a wave of his hand. He was just about to step out when a girl's murmur rang behind him and froze him in his tracks. DDY? Qianye looked up at the ceiling and let out a sigh. Despite his conversation with Qianye Ying'er, he ultimately walked back to the bed. Although Xianxia had been unconscious for a long time, it was obvious that her sleep wasn't a peaceful one. Her eyebrows were trembling even now. Qianye extended a finger and wiped away a tear from her youthful face. Then Xianxia slowly opened her eyes. "See, Nior." She stared at Qianye with a dazed expression. It looked like she hadn't woken up completely. "Xianxia," Qianye said softly with a smile, "I'm leaving." She wasn't Yun Wuxin, but she always reminded him of his daughter. He wanted to leave and free himself from this attachment, but he was having a hard time breaking off the connection. But he had to leave no matter how reluctant he felt. Dreams were transient, and he had no right to be cushioned by them. To his surprise, Xianxia didn't react with excitement, panic, or sorrow. The only visible difference was the added layer of mistiness in her eyes as she said, "Senior, please be safe no matter where you go and what you do." "Amen," Qianye replied with a nod. He then stared straight into the girl's eyes and said seriously, but gently, "Xianxia, life is full of hardship and despair. A weak person may succumb to them, but a strong person will be able to tear through the darkness and reveal the daylight above their heads." Qianye Ying'er curled her lips disdainfully at his statement. "Stay strong," Qianye said. "You may no longer have profound strength, but you can cultivate from the beginning and aim to become even stronger than before. You may have lost your father, but you can make yourself even stronger and more reliable than your father was. That way he'll have less to worry about when he watches you from the heavens. All right, childish." Qianye Ying'er's disdain increased even more. "Okay," Xianxia replied. Qianye's attempt to console her had been terrible and frail, but the girl had replied with the utmost seriousness. She stared at Qianye unblinkingly and continued, "I will listen to Senior. The daughter who lost her father will become stronger for his sake. So, the father who lost his daughter should also become stronger for her sake, right?" Xianxia's words caused his entire body to tremble. As he stared into her pure, untainted eyes, the emotions that should have all been devoured by darkness poured out madly from his heart. He turned away abruptly and gritted his teeth tightly. However, he couldn't stop shaking no matter how hard he tried. Finally, he turned his back to Xianxia and called out, "Qianye, let's go." Qianye almost stumbled out of the room. His footsteps and breathing were in complete disorder. Qianye Ying'er followed behind him and shot Xianxia a glance before she left. For once, her eyes were dyed by a complex emotion that even she didn't realize instead of the usual indifference. "Senior," although the door was closed, Qianye's back remained as clear as day in her blurry vision. She muttered as if she was sleep-talking, "Don't forget about our promise when I grow up. When I find you again, I hope that your smile won't be as sad as it is now." A terrible blood stench was enveloping the entire heavenly handle Yun clan. The only thing that outdid it was the people's despair. The desolate Heaven Dragon Chief, the 9 Lights Heavenly Sovereign, and Devotee Empty Mind had all perished. There was no longer any possibility of escaping the end. Right now, the only thing they could consider, was how to escape their judgment. But the Burning Moon King Realm was the one who branded them, and attempting to escape punishment would only add to the severity of their crimes. The northern divine region might be huge, but where could they escape to? Who would even dare take them in? Qianye walked on the soil drenched in dragon blood for a very long time before coming to a stop. So, the father who lost his daughter should also become stronger for her sake, right? It was such a feeble and powerless line, and yet it had nearly triggered a mental collapse when coming from Xianxia. He let out a long breath before looking at Qianye Ying'er. The woman had been silent until now. He said, "I'm surprised you didn't laugh at me." Qianye Ying'er was staring forward. A small smile appeared on her face before she replied, "The girl's father is dead, but mine is still alive. She lost all of her profound strength, and I can easily decide her fate with a flick of my fingers. However, I actually find myself envying her a little." Heh! Her smile turned cold and grim at the same time. The Brahma monarch goddess who once thought of all creations as trash is now envying a crippled girl. What a joke! Qianye shot a glance before continuing toward the front. Right now, they were walking toward the heavenly handle Yun clan's ancestral shrine. However, the battle had turned it into rubble. His old self would have looked upon his ancestors' land with reverence, but now all he could summon was a mask of indifference. When he reached the center of the shrine, he stomped on the ground with his right foot. Rumble! The ground and the barrier it was concealing shattered at the same time. Qianye dropped into a pocket world and stared at the shocked Yun clansmen in front of him. Clan Chief Yun Ting and the elders who had survived that battle with relatively minor injuries were all here. It was clear that they were discussing something important. "Qianye, you..." The speaker was cut short when Qianye Ying'er also dropped down from above and stood next to Qianye. Almost everyone had taken an involuntary step backward. Qianye stared at them frigidly before declaring, "All of you besides Clan Chief Yun will leave this place." Considering the brutality Qianye had displayed today and what had happened before their enemies had invaded, no one would be surprised if he decided to slaughter everyone on the spot. However, all he did was to tell them to leave. Perhaps the only reason behind his mercy was Xianxia's request after she woke up, the request that made them feel so ashamed they could die. Yun Ting's complexion was unnaturally pale. It was impossible to tell if it was because of his physical injuries, emotional stress, or both. His expression twitched for a moment before he waved his hands and said, "Leave us." A short silence later, the elders silently left. They couldn't stop Qianye anyway if he really planned to do something to Yun Ting. Qianye Ying'er moved her fingers a bit, and a sound isolation barrier appeared around them. She could more or less guess what Qianye was going to say and do, but she clearly had no intention of stopping him this time. "Venerable Yun, cough, 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 cough." Yun Ting coughed painfully before he could finish his sentence. Brown-colored blood passed through his mouth with every cough. He panted heavily for a moment before finally continuing, "What are your instructions? Do you know why you and your lot are still alive?" Qianye asked. Yun Ting bowed his head and murmured in regret and helplessness, "Xianxia, she doesn't know that you were going to use the forbidden blood transfer ritual and strip her of her purple-colored heavenly handle after you injured her." Qianye's voice abruptly dropped a couple of degrees. "You'd better make sure that she never learns about this." The corner of Yun Ting's mouth twitched. It wasn't until a long time later before he let out a deep sigh and asked, "Are you that expert who gave Xianxia all her blessings?" It wasn't a difficult guess to make. Anyone who witnessed his terrifying strength and his unusual protectiveness toward Xianxia would have realized this. They were stunned when the Nine Lights' heavenly sovereign had called Qianye a half-step divine master. But even the desolate heaven dragon chief and devotee empty mind had fallen to him like flies. Naturally, it meant that he was even stronger than that. "Correct. Why would someone like you show so much kindness to Xianxia?" Yun Ting asked. The earlier battle showed him that Qianye was a man of deadly power and even deadlier temper. Even someone as old and experienced as him was deeply terrified by Qianye's lack of concern toward the thousand desolation divine sect, and his brutality when he intentionally scattered the flesh and blood of the dragons all over the place. He just couldn't understand why someone like Qianye would treat Xianxia as well as he did. Qianye raised his arm and stunned Yun Ting with an orange flash. Yun Ting looked thunderstruck. He shouted unconsciously, That's the heavenly handle divine power." "You," staring at Qianye in shock and disbelief, he said, "You're a member of the heavenly handle Yun clan." "I am not." The coolness in Qianye's eyes didn't change one bit. "My ancestor left the heavenly handle Yun clan a long time ago." Yun Ting's mouth fell open and his features shivered. When the excitement and shock had passed, the emotions in his eyes became replaced by something more complex. He was no longer looking at Qianye with the same eyes as before. A long time later, he lowered his arm and felt his vision turning blurry. His voice became as soft as a dream. "I see now. You're his descendant. Is he still alive?" "No," Qianye replied. "I'm the only one who's still alive in the illusory demon Yun clan." His answer stunned Yun-Ting to silence again. Then he muttered in a daze, "Dead, the illusory demon Yun clan? Dead? Heh, he." He was laughing, but the laugh sounded incredibly sorrowful. He had no doubt that he hated that man to the bone, but the first emotion he felt upon hearing of his death wasn't joy, but sorrow. Also good," he muttered to himself. "A dead man doesn't feel pain or worry. A dead man doesn't need to choose or struggle. A dead man cannot continue a feud, and so is free to pass on to the next world." His soliloquy was clearly filled with misery and suicidal thoughts. It was the kind of suicidal thoughts one might hold before the coming of despair. "You want to die so much?" Qianye shot him a glance before sneering at him. "Then I'll keep you alive instead." He appeared behind Yun-Ting in an instant and hit the old man's back. During that time, he unleashed the divine miracle of life in an instant and withdrew it just as quick. Bang! Yun-Ting exclaimed in surprise before stumbling forward and spitting out a mouthful of black blood. He clutched his chest with both hands, and suddenly he turned around and stared at Qianye in complete disbelief. "The curse the burning moon god realm left inside you has been removed completely." Qianye put his hands behind his back. "With your own reserves and the heavenly handle Yun clan's resources, it shouldn't take long for you to return to your former strength." The curse Yun-Ting was inflicted with had forcefully kept his profound strength at divine sovereign realm, so naturally it was incredibly powerful. But no matter how powerful it was far inferior compared to the Brahma soul death-wishing mark. Not to mention that it was a product of darkness profound energy. Light profound energy was the bane of darkness profound energy, and the divine miracle of life was a transcendent art. That was why Qianye was able to remove it with ease. With his cultivation recovered, Yun-Ting was no longer in danger of running out of lifespan. The old man could barely suppress his excitement as he checked his body. He thought Qianye had come to punish him for his sins, but he took a step forward and tried to give Qianye a bow, but the young man turned his back to him and said, "Your thanks are unnecessary. The only reason I'm saving you is because you're still useful to me." Yun-Ting froze in mid-motion, but not even Qianye's harsh words could extinguish the excitement in his heart. Right now, he was literally incapable of speaking. "I saved Xianxia because her profound art and heavenly handle divine power caught my attention." Qianye said solemnly. "Later on, I decided to stick with her because I wished to see how her clan was doing with my own eyes. However, that thought transformed into something else when I came to see my late daughter in her." Yun-Ting. Tens of thousands of years ago, the Burning Moon King realm somehow learned the true identity of the sacred artifact your clan is protecting and tried to force you into surrendering it. Qianye said matter-of-factly. "The clan became divided because of this incident. You wanted to surrender the sacred artifact to protect the clan, but the second clan chief would rather die than do that. The disagreement was irreconcilable, so the second clan chief ultimately chose to leave the heavenly handle Yun clan and the northern divine region itself with the sacred artifact and his followers, then vanished without a trace. That was how the heavenly handle Yun clan landed itself in great disaster." "Is that the story he left behind?" Yun-Ting's eyes looked a little unfocused. "No, half of it I heard from Xianxia and the remaining half I guessed myself," Qianye explained. "My ancestor didn't leave behind any record or trace about the heavenly handle Yun clan. The illusory demon Yun clan doesn't have anything to do with the heavenly handle Yun clan besides their bloodline history." "Is that so?" Yun-Ting smiled miserably before continuing. "The Burning Moon King realm wasn't a force we could defy back then, so I never thought that my choice to surrender the sacred artifact in exchange for the whole clan's safety was a mistake. Of course, it is our ancestors' instruction and our clan's duty to protect the sacred artifact, so his choice was equally right. However, he later decided to escape the northern divine region with the sacred artifact. He may have gotten what he wanted, but we were the ones who had to pay the price. We were the ones who fell from the heavens all the way to hell. He probably wanted to cut ties with the heavenly handle Yun clan, but he seemed to have forgotten that the sacred artifact belongs to the heavenly handle Yun clan, not to the illusory demon Yun clan, and definitely not to him. Cough, cough, cough." His emotions got the better of him, and his body and his expression became racked with pain for a moment. Qianye didn't have a reply or a retort to offer. Who? It took Ting a while to regain his cool. Finally, he smiled bitterly at Qianye and shook his head, saying, "It doesn't matter now. Everything is in the past, and he's no longer in this world. To dwell on it any longer is meaningless, and it has nothing to do with you whatsoever. Still, I'm sure he must be glad to have a descendant like you." "That sacred artifact," Qianye asked suddenly, "is it the mirror of samsara?" The sleepy-looking Qianye Ying'er abruptly opened her eyes. Ting looked up and stared at him with widened eyes as well. Although he wasn't facing Ting, that slight tremor in the latter's soul told him everything he needed to know. "I don't want to know about the cause or what led up to that tragedy. I don't care who's right or wrong either. From today onward, the heavenly handle Yun clan and I are done. The reason I came to meet you today is to tell you one thing." Qianye finally turned around to face Ting. "I'll eliminate the Thousand Desolation divine sect and bring an end to your upcoming doom temporarily." Ting was speechless when he heard Qianye's declaration. "But don't forget," Qianye said slowly and without emotion, "I'm not doing this for the heavenly handle Yun clan, and I'm definitely not paying for the sins my ancestor committed. I'm only doing this because of what Xianxia said." He strode past the stupefied Ting and left his final words. "The reason I haven't killed any of you is because I don't want to dirty her heart in any way. The reason I'm saving your clan is because I don't want her world to sink into darkness. As for you, don't doubt whether I have the ability to carry out my word. All you need to consider is how best to make it up to Xianxia." Even the reason he eliminated Ting's curse was so that Xianxia could enjoy the protection of a divine master. Ting didn't know how long he was in a daze. By the time he returned to himself and turned around in a hurry, Qianye and Qianye Ying'er were long gone. Bang! Qianye kicked aside a dead dragon that was several thousand meters long and stepped into the lightning formation. He didn't know when he would return after he left the heavenly handle Yun clan. Maybe he would never return. "Is the mirror of samsara with you right now?" Qianye Ying'er asked suddenly. Qianye didn't give her an answer. "Another question." Qianye Ying'er raised her eyebrows slightly and asked, "Did you sleep with the Dragon Queen when you were in the Dragon God realm?" Qianye still did not reply, but his feet were slightly obstructed by a heavy piece of dragon bone. The slightly playful look in Qianye Ying'er's eyes clearly changed. She twirled around and blocked Qianye's path. You really slept with the Dragon Queen?" Qianye's brows knit together slightly as he retorted in a cold and calm voice, "That's none of your business." Qianye Ying'er's jade face froze. After that, the corners of her lips curled up before she started to howl with laughter. "Ha ha 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 ha! No wonder, ha 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 ha!" She laughed so hard that her delicate waist and her silky bosom shook with laughter. This was the first time she had laughed in such a carefree and unrestrained manner since she arrived in the northern divine region. There was no iciness or murkiness in her laughter. It was a laugh of pure delight, a laugh that was born out of the pure desire to laugh out loud. In the God realm, and this was especially true if you were someone from a king realm, there was no one who did not know that the Dragon Queen had always been a huge influence on the dragon monarch. Even after he became the emperor of the dragons and the monarch of the primal chaos, he still strictly adhered to the path of righteousness. He never despised the weak and lowly, and his heart was as broad as the heavens themselves. This did not only cause the prestige of the dragon gods to soar, it also garnered them the reverence and respect of the entire universe. During the conferred god battle, everyone could clearly see the admiration that the dragon monarch had for Qianye and the clear desire he had to protect Qianye. In the end, he even publicly declared that he wanted to take Qianye in as his foster son. It was extremely difficult for someone like the dragon monarch to admire someone, and it was also extremely difficult to change their minds about a person they already admired. Thus, the change in his attitude toward Qianye had truly been far too strange. After the Devil Emperor left and the evil infant was blasted out of the primal chaos, he had suddenly stepped forward. It was his cold and merciless words that pushed Qianye to oppose everyone, that forced him to fall into darkness. The only person that could cause the Dragon Monarch's attitude to change to such a great degree was the Dragon Queen herself. And before that, the Dragon Queen had, strangely enough, chosen to go into seclusion. The Dragon Queen, who had never been willing to have any contact with the outside world, did not only take Qianye in all those years ago. She had even taught him how to cultivate light profound energy. and this definitely could not simply be explained away as her cherishing talent. The brutality Qianye displayed when he went up against the desolate Heaven Dragon clan caused her to recall the grievance that Qianye and the Dragon Monarch had against each other. After that, she inadvertently put two and two together and came up with an extremely outrageous conclusion, a conclusion that no one would have ever imagined. However, no matter how absurd or ridiculous something was, it was always a possibility with Qianye. The question she had ambushed Qianye with had been 1 part curiosity and 9 parts mockery. She had fully intended to follow up with this mocking statement. If you didn't sleep with the Dragon Queen, then why did the Dragon Monarch suddenly become so vicious and ruthless toward you? However, the reaction she had gotten from Qianye was not cold scorn. Instead, he had reacted by lapsing into a clearly strange silence before giving a retort that was equivalent to tacit admittance of guilt. Xianxia's shadow undoubtedly existed in the deepest, most painful, and most guilty part of Qianye's heart. His brows fiercely sank and his eyes were filled with rage as he shouted, "What's so funny?" If Xianxia had not met him back then she would not have been met with such disaster later. However, he was not willing to believe that Xianxia was already dead. He'd rather believe that everything that Xia Qingyu had told him had been a lie. Qianye Ying'er's laughter gradually died down, but a smile still played along her lips as she said, "Why can't I laugh? The Queen of the Dragon Monarch, the Dragon Queen of the Primal Chaos, the Dragon Queen who was mentioned in the same breath as me. A woman who reduced the Dragon Monarch to nothing more than a loyal dog. The woman who was regarded as a sacred fairy whose purity and virtue was as high as a heavenly tower. To think that she actually turned out to be a wanton slut whose purity was only a facade." The fires of rage in Qianye's eyes exploded. His arm shot out and grabbed the neck of Qianye Ying'er's robes as he snarled roughly, "Say that one more time. Did I say anything wrong?" Qianye Ying'er still wore a cold smile on her face. This was clearly something that had nothing to do with her, but for some odd reason she felt an indescribable elation in her heart. "If you dare to badmouth her again," Qianye's hands trembled. "I will cripple you. Can you bear to?" Qianye Ying'er's gorgeous eyes were calm and icy. There was no trace of fear or apprehension in them. "If I'm crippled, then there won't be any other woman in this world with the blood of a devil emperor. Who is going to help you cultivate the eternal calamity of darkness then? Who is going to help you turn the 3 divine regions into a nest of devils? Qianye, without you, I would still be able to trample over the 3 divine regions in the future. But without me, you can forget about ever taking revenge," Qianye replied in a deep and solemn voice. But he fiercely flung aside the hands which had grabbed onto Qianye Ying'er. "Also, remember this, she is Xianxia, not the Dragon Queen." Qianye Ying'er brushed a jade hand over her chest as she gently smoothed out the wrinkles in her clothes. Qianye's words gave her something to think about, but her words were still mocking as she said, "Oh, so you not only slept with her, but you actually slept with her until you had feelings for her?" She took a single step forward, her orchid-like breath gently brushing against Qianye's lips. "It's no wonder that the Dragon Monarch treated you in such a way. To think that the Dragon Queen Xianxia and the goddess Qianye both became toys for you to play with. You truly do deserve to be hacked to bits. She is not the Dragon Queen," Qianye icily repeated himself. "More importantly, she isn't a toy either. You also are not worthy to be mentioned in the same sentence as her." "Oh, really?" Qianye Ying'er was not the least bit angry. The one person that was most able to give her a sense that the universe was fair had undoubtedly been Xianxia. She crooked her delicate head forward, her lips nearly brushing against Qianye's ear. "Then why don't you tell me when you were going at it with Xianxia, did she still look so lofty, sacred, and pure?" Qianye started to clench his fists, but in the instant before the fires of his rage exploded, he suddenly suppressed them. A bland smile appeared on his face instead as he said, "She is the most perfect woman in this universe. In front of me, she was as pure as a snow lotus, but she could also be as unrestrained and debauched as a temptress. During the time I spent with her, I hated that I could not spend every moment on top of her. You can't compare to her even when it comes to this. In the end, you are only a tool for my cultivation and an exquisite toy for me to play with. Do you understand?" The smile on Qianye Ying'er's face slowly disappeared, but her lips did not leave his ear. Her voice was also far more calm and bland when she spoke again. "Don't you worry, Qianye. I will fulfill my responsibilities as your tool and toy well, and you must do so as well." "HMPH?" Qianye swung around and started moving again as he swiftly headed out beyond the lightning region. Qianye Ying'er leisurely followed behind him, but it was clear that her heart was not at ease. "Not the Dragon Queen?" Qianye Ying'er had not glossed over these words that Xianxia had uttered. She smiled, but this time, her smile was filled with scorn. So it turns out that the so-called #1 person in the primal chaos was nothing more than a sad joke. But who in this world has really ever truly seen through another? Once they had left the heavenly handle Yun clan, Xianxia started moving at maximum speed. He shot straight toward the south without any hesitation, and he did not need to make any preparations either. He had told Yun Ting that he would go and destroy the Thousand Desolation divine sect. But the reality was that even if the current him attacked with Qianye Ying'er, there was no way that they could truly destroy the Thousand Desolation divine sect. As the Thousand Desolation Realm King sect, its reputation was enormous. Its foundation was deep and broad thick. It possessed many powerhouses with varying strengths and specialties. Any single one of these factors was a mountain so high that one could not see its peak. What's more, the sect master of the Thousand Desolation divine sect, the great realm king of the Thousand Desolation realm, was a genuine divine master. But Xianxia still said those words to Yun Ting, and he had given himself a very short amount of time. After all, the fact that devotee Empty Mind had died in the heavenly handle Yun clan would definitely be reported to the Thousand Desolation divine sect. Because this was such a huge matter, it would only be a matter of days before they went to interrogate the heavenly handle Yun clan. The reason was very simple. During the time he had spent in the heavenly handle Yun clan, he had already clearly felt the bottleneck that obstructed his entry into the divine sovereign realm. He just needed an opportunity. No, he did not even need an opportunity. He just needed one gentle push, and he would be able to completely break through that bottleneck and become a divine sovereign. This was also the reason why he had told Qianye Ying'er that he would be able to help her become a divine master again in 3 days' time. To any profound practitioner, breaking through to the next big realm would always bring about a fundamental change in their profound strength and an explosive growth in their cultivation. But to Xianxia, the increase in his strength every time he broke through to a new realm of power could be said to be completely earth-shattering. Nine Lights Heaven was a small world that floated above innumerable mountains. This was where the Thousand Desolation realms famed, and mighty Nine Lights Heavenly Palace resided. In the Thousand Desolation realm, the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace was one of the strongest sects under the Thousand Desolation divine sect. It was a sacred ground of the profound way that countless Thousand Desolation profound practitioners feverishly dreamed of entering. If they could enter any of the 9 palaces, it would be the glory of a lifetime. However, the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace was extremely restless today. Because their chief palace master, who had personally gone to the heavenly handle Yun clan to profit from their misfortune, had actually died there. Black energy curled around the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace, and the auras of the people within were filled with a panic they had never felt before. Venerable Hidden Universe, head of the 9 palace masters of the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace, was second only to the Nine Lights Heavenly Sovereign within their sect. The Nine Lights Heavenly Sovereign had been killed, and none of his descendants had reached their prime yet, so it was only natural that he would succeed the position of Chief Palace Master. But he was still in a state of shock, even now. He had followed the Nine Lights Heavenly Sovereign to the heavenly handle Yun clan, and he had personally witnessed the desolate Heaven Dragon clan get slaughtered like a bunch of lowly worms. He had personally witnessed someone killing devotee Empty Mind with a single stamp of his foot, had personally witnessed the Nine Lights Heavenly Sovereign getting split into 8 parts in a single instant. He had seen people die far too many times in his life, but those had been the desolate Heaven Devil Dragons. Those had been peak divine sovereigns. Chief Palace Master, all of the other Palace Masters are already inside the Nine Lights Palace. They are waiting for Chief Palace Master to take charge of things. Venerable Hidden Universe's chief disciple said as he bowed down. His attitude was fawning, and he had directly addressed Venerable Hidden Universe as Chief Palace Master. And he used the words, "take charge," rather than discuss. Venerable Hidden Universe nodded his head as he gave a heavy sigh and stood up. As he got to his feet, he subconsciously raised his head to look at the sky. It was at this moment that his entire body shuddered and his gaze whipped downwards. A hoarse yell that resembled the roar of a startled and panicked beast came out of his mouth. Yun, 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 Xianxia. Xianxia and Qianye Ying'er were floating above Nine Lights Heaven as they coldly eyed the vast and boundless Nine Lights Heavenly Palace.